American Comics. God-level ability, can hit infinitely. Chapter 61. Asgard. Asgard is in disarray at the moment. Countless royal guards walk through Asgard non-stop. Just now, the Dark Elves, who had been silent for many years, reappeared. Drive their stealth warships directly into Asgard. A large number of Asgard warriors were killed, and the Queen of Heaven, Frigga, also died at the hands of the Dark Elf general. Even Odin was very angry, trembling with anger. But in the end it is a hero-level existence that traverses the universe. There was incomparable grief in my heart, but it was not revealed on the surface. After the funeral was held and Frigg was buried in the endless void. He called Thor to his side. Thor, the Dark Elves' invasion is definitely not for revenge. They have a deeper plot. Malekith is not a simple character, he is not so stupid as to bury the last power of the Dark Elves. Odin spoke in a heavy voice. Father, let me go. I will kill Malekith and avenge my mother. Thor's eyes were bloodshot, and he was already extremely angry. Although Frigga is not his biological mother, he regards 16 as his own. There is no favoritism, either for him or for Loki. Thor really thinks of her as his own mother. As the saying goes, how could he not be angry about killing his mother? If Odin hadn't stopped him, he would have gone after him long ago. Father, why did you stop me and let me take revenge? Thor gritted his teeth and said. Calm. A blue light flashed on Odin. Thunder flickered around him. Thor shivered as if he had been poured with cold water, and quickly calmed down. Yes, father. Thor bowed his head and said. Your purpose is to stop Malekith. It's not for the so-called revenge. Otherwise the whole of Asgard will fall. Your mother died in vain. As the prince of Asgard, you must calm down. Be responsible for the entire Asgard. Odin spoke earnestly. Thor glanced at Odin. He lowered his head and said to Odin. I see, father. Very good. 1. Go ahead and let Heimdall take you to Earth. To stop Malekith and restore peace to the 9 kingdoms. Odin said lightly. Yes, father. Thor nodded, turned and left. Soon, he went straight to Bifrost. And Heimdall, who killed a Dark Elf starship with a dagger during the day, was very calm. Like nothing happened. Thor, go and prove your glory. Heimdall spoke up. Asgard is a very martial civilization, and the wars of the past seem like yesterday. Therefore, they don't suffer as much as the people on Earth for the loss of their loved ones, and they accept it more. Thor is also calm now. I understand, Heimdall. I will kill Malekith and take back our glory. Take me to Midgard. Thor said with a serious face. Heimdall sighed. Turned the hub of the teleportation hall. Bifrost. It is the most powerful masterpiece of Asgard, and the most powerful weapon. Can send Asgard people to any corner of the universe. When fully activated, it can destroy a planet. It can be said. This is the crystallization of the highest technology in Asgard. Even Odin's normal shots may not necessarily be as powerful as Bifrost. Under the urging of Heimdall, a multicolored light emanates from Asgard. It shot towards the Earth, which is unknown how far away. This colorful light, like a miracle, crossed an unknown number of light years in the blink of an eye, and reached the scope of the solar system. As usual, in the blink of an eye, this colorful light will hit the Earth, sending Pyle, the Prince of Asgard, to the Earth. Above the Earth, a huge amount of white sword energy came out and shot towards the boundless sky. The universe is vast and boundless. Different from the works in the movie. The universe is very empty. It may be hundreds of millions of kilometers before there is only one thing. Most of the places are in different void of the universe. The chances of 2 different things meeting each other are very small. What a coincidence. This coincidence just happened. The Beijan-colored light blade shot towards the black sky. At the same time, a ray of colorful light came oncoming. Bark. The two collide together. The huge energy of Bifrost and the divine power on Wysandy's sacred sword collided with each other, resulting in huge amounts of explosion. Even if there is no sound in the universe. But the collision of the two produced a dazzling light. The whole Earth can see the dazzling light. Not to mention Thor, who was engulfed by the power of Bifrost. He only felt a sudden whiteness in front of him, and his eyes were almost blinded by the flash. Next moment, the whole person was thrown directly into the universe. Before coma. Thor's only question is, what the hell is this? Why is it so powerful? Asgard. Odin, who had been observing Thor, suddenly changed his face. What kind of power is this? Why does it look like Agamotto's power? Could it be that Ancient One made a move? Odin's heart vibrated. With such pure divine power, it can be seen that he has obtained the marriage of Waishandi's concubine. Perhaps only Ancient One has this kind of power on earth, right? Wrong. The power of Ancient One is much more restrained, and this power 227 must show its sharpness. It's not like the power of Ancient One at all. Who the hell? Is it a magician other than Kamar Taj, who wants to target Asgard? Odin had a lot of thoughts in his mind. Once the Emperor reaches his twilight years, it is very easy to think wildly. Odin is no exception. If it is the peak period, he certainly wouldn't think so much. No matter what happens, he has the confidence to suppress it. But he is old and has a few more years to live. However, Asgard was ineffective, and Thor did not grow up. At this moment, when encountering the suspected Kamar Taj force attacking Bifrost, he naturally thought a lot. Such a powerful force must not have been sent out casually. Even Ancient One, launching this kind of attack is not easy. Besides, the universe is vast and boundless. Can random attacks really be such a coincidence? Odin kept thinking. He couldn't help but have a terrible idea in his mind. Could it be that Kamar Taj once again gave birth to a powerhouse not inferior to Ancient One? Are they starting to resent Asgard's dominance? Are they trying to rebel? With this thought already in his mind, Odin couldn't stop at all. Usually, his relationship with Ancient One is not bad, so naturally he doesn't think too much about it. But once you get old, your lifespan will be over. Even Odin is not immune. In other words, the king's mission is destined to be so. Yes or no, just try it out and you'll know. Odin thought to himself. What happened in Asgard? Li Xuan in Kamar Taj naturally did not know. He didn't know that, with a random blow, he actually directly shattered Asgard's Bifrost teleportation. Li Xuan who doesn't know these. Naturally, it is very natural and comfortable to learn from us. Teacher Modu, what do you think of my sacred sword? Any questions? Li Xuan said very modestly. The corner of Mordo's mouth twitched. This kid. What advice can he offer? This magic is much more powerful than the magic he used. How does he provide advice? Isn't this a joke? Modu suddenly felt that this kid suddenly became a little hideous. It's fine if you don't have some tricks, but you still come out to show off, which is really annoying. Mordo sighed. Xuan, you are a genius. Learning magic is still very fast, and the structure of this magic is also very good. The energy flow is also perfect. I think there's nothing wrong with it. Your magic, even among the big magicians, is pretty good. Don't worry, you don't have to worry about this. Modu said comfortingly. Thank you, Teacher Modu. Li Xuan nodded shyly. Then you can't teach me another spell. Then he spoke. Mordo rolled his eyes. Good guy, are you waiting for me here? No wonder so respectful, no wonder. If you don't have anything to show your courtesy, you can either R*** or steal. Modu said. How can you say that? This is for you to use your teacher's ability. Li Xuan said with a playful smile. Okay, I know who you are. Just tell me what magic you want to learn. Modu said lightly. If possible, I would like to learn life-saving magic. Li Xuan said. Whether he is defending or attacking now, Duanyi's various methods are very comprehensive. When fighting, magic can definitely form a combination, which is enough for fighting. What he lacks most now. It is a life-saving magic. It is necessary to develop morality, intelligence, physique, art and labor in an all-round way, and the group is a long-term solution. After all, only by living can we have a future. Li Xuan sighed in his heart. That's what you said. In battle, life preservation is indeed a very important magic. Magicians who don't know life-saving magic have the highest death rate even in other dimensions. It's very good that you can have this idea. Mordo nodded. Then what kind of magic do you think I should practice? Li Xuan asked very modestly. Naturally, it is the ancient body of Hogarth. Modu said without any hesitation. Oh. Turn into a butterfly and fly. Li Xuan suddenly realized. This is indeed a very powerful life-saving magic. Attacks launched by Thanos using infinite gems can be easily blocked. One can imagine how powerful this magic is. It can be said. This is definitely Kamar Taj's most powerful life-saving magic. However, I heard Li Xuan's complaints. Modu's face turned black. That's no ordinary butterfly, it's a powerful magical creature. This is the incarnation of Hogs, his body is illusory and unable to attack. It can withstand all attacks. Even fatal attacks can be pardoned. Unless you can annihilate the avatar in an instant, you won't die at all. Mordo said. That's how it is, it's really powerful. No wonder it can withstand powerful attacks. Li Xuan suddenly realized. It turned out to be the incarnation of the gods, no wonder it was able to resist the attack of infinite gems, it was really powerful. Li Xuan immediately became excited. He loves this powerful magic. Modu looked at Li Xuan with a complacent expression on his face. No matter how talented this kid is, so what? Don't you want to learn magic from him? Ahem, in order to let you have a clear understanding of this magic, I will demonstrate it to you. Come on, attack me. Modu said lightly. Isn't that bad? Li Xuan said. What's wrong? If you don't attack me, how can you see how powerful this magic is? Only by experiencing it for yourself can you know how powerful this magic is. Quote. Modu said. Then offend, Mr. Modu, be careful. Finished. Li Xuan waved his hand directly, and a Baijin-colored longsword appeared in Li Xuan's hand. Modu smiled and didn't defend himself, just stood there and watched quietly. Teacher Modu, you are ready. Li Xuan said something. The Baijin-colored holy sword in his hand slashed in front of him. A beam of huge amounts of Baijin-colored sword energy shot out from the long sword. The ground directly cracked under the action of this powerful force. A crack with a length of hundreds of meters appeared above the ground. Looking at the sword aura with a file size of over 1,000 meters, Modu's face turned green. This kid is too perverted. How can the same magic exert such powerful power? Modu's expression changed, and his mental power suddenly activated the magic. Puff. There was a soft sound. Modu's whole body exploded directly. It turned into a green crystal powder. Next moment. Those green crystal powders directly turned into butterflies all over the sky. The dazzling Baijin-colored sword energy flashed through it. The extremely strong sword energy directly annihilated most of the butterflies, which looked very terrifying. Hogarth's ancient body is really powerful. Quote. Li Xuan couldn't help sighing. Ding. It is detected that the host carefully watched the divine magic. Hog's ancient body, the god-level ability produces 100 times critical strike. You have mastered the ancient body of Hogs. The system's notification sounded, and a smile appeared on the corner of Li Xuan's mouth. This magic. He learned. And over there. The green butterfly that I can't afford to lose to you floats, and the next moment, Modu's figure, Ma Li's, appears again. Looking at Li Xuan, the corners of Modu's mouth twitched again. This kid. Is it too perverted? The incarnation of Hogarth's ancient body was directly annihilated by more than half. Does the magic I just learned have such power? This is too raw. I really don't know why this kid's ability is so abnormal. Shook his head. Modu looked at Li Xuan and said. How have you learned this magic? You taught me well, I have already mastered this magic. Li Xuan spoke very low-key. There was a surefire expression on Modu's face. This kid. What a geek lot. A magician who obviously has the power of a god is the most difficult magic to learn. But in the eyes of this kid, it's as if ordinary magic is no different at all. You can learn it just by looking at it. Mordo felt no doubt about it. This kid will definitely become a powerhouse comparable to Sorcerer Supreme. Mordo didn't expect it. Kamar Taj can produce such a genius. He had never seen the ability of the Sorcerer Supreme back then. But now Li Xuan's ability, he is seeing it in his eyes. This kid. Unusual. Modu felt that if this went on like this, it wouldn't take long for this kid to surpass him by far. Take a deep breath. Modu said. Boy, I know you learn magic fast. After learning this magic, how does it feel? Feel good. Li Xuan said. Learned the ancient body of Hogarth. Even facing a strong enemy of Dormammu's level, he is sure to fight. Not bad. Li Xuan thought happily in her heart. Very well, since you are so confident. Then let's try it. If you don't try it, how will you know how powerful magic is? Modu looked at Li Xuan and said. The expression on Mordo's face was very excited. Finally, it was his turn to attack the kid. Now I have to vent my anger. He is a big magician, but he doesn't eat dry food. Li Xuan looked at the somewhat excited Modou, and couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth. Plausible. Why is this big magician not reserved at all? But, since Modou said so, he was too embarrassed to refuse. Since you have said so, big magician, then I can only be respectful rather than obedient. Be gentle with 007. Li Xuan said helplessly. Don't worry, I know. A bright smile appeared on Mordo's face. Snapped. There was a soft sound. Modou pulled his hands. It's like pulling ramen noodles. A Baijin-colored thunder appeared in his hand. Kamar Taj's strongest attack magic, Bosat's thunder. Click. Modou flicked it. The thunder spread towards Li Xuan from the ground. Baijin-colored thunder constantly spread on the ground. Cracks of hundreds of meters surfaced above the ground. Feeling the powerful power, Li Xuan couldn't help but change his face. Modou, this big magician. It's really not parallel imports. The power of magic is very amazing. But this time, Li Xuan didn't intend to use the magic shield to resist at all. Just stay there quietly. The thunder that spread over directly struck Li Xuan's body. Boom. Emergence of green. Li Xuan shattered like a glass statue. Fragmented pale green fluorescence are everywhere. Next moment, the green light suddenly changed. These light green rays of light directly turned into green BGCC butterflies and began to fly in the mirror dimension. Compared with the magic cast by Modou, the ancient body of hogs used by Li Xuan has more changes and more butterflies. For a while, the entire mirror dimension is filled with a pale green glow. It's not right. It doesn't feel right. Modou looked at these light green butterflies and felt something was wrong. He actually sensed danger on the butterfly. To know. At the level of the big magician. For danger, there is also a certain foresight ability. After experiencing so many battles, even his body will develop an instinct to actively avoid danger. Now, he looked at those butterflies, but there was a feeling of horror in his heart. The cold hairs on his arms stood on end. Something's wrong. What's the situation? Mordo is still thinking. Suddenly saw. The belly of the beautiful green butterfly, which has always been beautiful, began to turn red. There seemed to be a fire, flickering in it. Mordo suddenly widened his eyes. Next moment, his whole body was blown to pieces. A light green light emerged. At the same time, those pale green butterflies that Li Xuan changed. It just exploded. It's like a missile. The belly of the butterfly glows red, and then flames burst out. A butterfly explodes, like a chain reaction. All butterflies are exploding. For a while, the entire mirror dimension is filled with red explosion flares. The entire mirror dimension seems to be expanding, constantly shapeshifting. Even the flames produced by the explosion directly exploded the mirror dimension and emerged in the sky of Kamar Taj. Kamar Taj seemed to be playing firework for a moment. The whole of Kamar Taj saw it. A few minutes passed. Those continuous constantly exploded before disappearing. Call. Modou emerged from the mirror dimension in disgrace. His body was smoky, as if he had just come off the battlefield. But Modou didn't seem to notice the embarrassment on his body at all. Looking at the surrounding environment that seemed to be bombed by a bomber, the corners of Modou's mouth twitched. What happened? Did Li Xuan use powerful attack magic just now? Such a powerful force. It is almost the same as the power of Bosat's thunder. And this is just a life-saving magic. Is this magic used to save lives? This is killing someone. Even if he is unprepared, he may be seriously injured directly. Who would have thought? What started out as a beautiful butterfly turned into such a dangerous thing. Looking at Li Xuan who slowly appeared from the void, Modou sighed in his heart. This kid. It's really becoming more and more perverted. Being able to learn magic at a glance is not enough. You can also improve these spells based on your character and strength. This ability. Could it be true that the rumor that spread so widely in Kamar Taj is true? Is this kid really the illegitimate child of some god? Modou couldn't help being very suspicious. And outside the mirror dimension. Among Kamar Taj, Ancient One's eyes also exuded a strange light. If you can watch her eyes carefully, you can find it. What Ancient One looked at was not the mirror image in front of him, but other places. It is clear. With the help of the power of the dark space, she directly observed what happened in the mirror dimension. And, it's been a long time since I watched it. But neither Modu nor Li Xuan felt it. The power of Ancient One can be imagined. But at this moment, this is an incomparably tyrannical existence. There was also a turbulent wave in my heart, and I kept playing with the fan in my hand to calm my mood. Obviously, the scene that happened in the mirror dimension just now take Ancient One by surprise. It doesn't matter if you learn to possess the magic of deities' power at a glance, he has seen it more than once, and he is used to it. On this basis, it is also possible to transform this level of magic. Then exert a more powerful force. This is not so simple. This requires practicing magic to the extreme. You also need to understand the power of the gods. But it all takes time and a lot of knowledge. Li Xuan has mastered so much at such a young age. This ability. It's staggering. She had felt that Strange was already the most talented person she could find. But now, Ancient One realized. She was wrong. This kid, Li Xuan, is the most talented, even to the point of being perverted. Under the aegis of the Sorcerer Supreme, Kamar Taj can be said that the years are quiet and good. No one dared to invade Kamar Taj at all. Most magicians face trivial dangers. So the magicians lived very peacefully. The same is true for Li Xuan. Every day is to practice magic and go to the library to read books. The days were very carefree. Li Xuan's life is happy. In Asgard, on the other side of the universe, this is not the case. Odin's face was very gloomy. Some time ago, the invasion of the Dark Elves caused them great losses. The Dark Elves led Malekith, who had fought with Odin for thousands of years, and even went to Earth to snatch type particles, that is, reality gems. If you snatch the gems in this world, you can take advantage of the chance that the 9 kingdoms, which are rarely seen in thousands of years, will be in a line. Malekith will be able to darken this and that universe. Odin directly sent Thor to Earth to stop Malekith. Result. Bifrost was shattered directly by some powerful force on Earth. Odin had to spend a lot of power and use black magic to locate Thor's position and throw him back to the Earth. Thor did not disappoint him and successfully killed Malekith. But Odin was not happy, but a little powerless. Without him, starting the teleportation from Asgard to Earth is not that simple. It takes a lot of power. If it is the peak period, Odin will not care about this consumption. But now, he is numbered, old and frail. Every bit of power is crucial. So teleported to Thor to the Earth. His strength has naturally been weakened a lot, and his vitality has become even weaker. In this way, certain things have naturally changed. For example, Seal of Hela on Earth. This seal, which relies on his vitality, is the most important thing to seal Hela. Normally, if he uses a little bit of power, he can naturally strengthen Hela's seal a little bit, without any problems. But suddenly, Odin hesitated. He remembered the force that shattered Bifrost. What is the attitude of Ancient One? She shouldn't be some kind of ambitious person. However, when this happens, we have to guard against it. Let's test Gu Fan first. Odin thought to himself. Then, Odin didn't use his strength to strengthen his seal, but let it go. Odin's power weakened. Being sealed away on Earth, Hela naturally felt it. She constantly impacts the seal. The tyrannical power of death reverberates in the inner world. The already weak seal was under her shock. There was a crack. A death power penetrated from the seal. Suddenly. With that seal as the center, all creatures within a kilometer of Fangyuan died. Even the green grass on the ground turned yellow and turned to ashes. Don't look at the power of death as if it is very powerful and poses a great threat, but it is really small for the Earth. Ordinary people will not feel this power at all. There is one exception. That is the Sorcerer Supreme. There are other existences that have reached the level Godfather, each of which has infinite power. They shot with all their strength, and could even blow up a planet. No matter how subtle the fluctuation is, it cannot escape the eyes of Ancient One. The moment the divine power of death appeared, Ancient One noticed it. There was a flash of gold. The Ancient One appeared in Norway, where Hela was sealed. Hela's seal was broken. What's going on with Odin? If things go on like this, the balance will be broken. Ancient One frowned. 200 years ago, when she traveled, she almost broke the seal, causing Odin to come. Later, under their deliberation, the two of them worked together to strengthen the seal. Their power maintains a delicate balance. Unless both of them are dead, Hela will never see the light of day. Can now. Odin's power has been weakened. The seals are all broken. Odin is also like me, is it close to the end? Ancient One muttered to himself. As a person who can predict the future, she has a vague foretelling of her own destiny. She knows. She is also dying. Even if Caecilius was captured, it still could not change her future doomed death. Without Caecilius, there would be other followers of Dormammu to put her to death. As long as Dormammu is alive, she is doomed to die. Feeling the decline of Odin's power, Ancient One couldn't help but feel a little hurt. My life is at the limit. But Hela must never come out. Otherwise the earth will be devastated. If I do die, someone must be responsible for strengthening Hela's seal. Ancient One thought in his heart. The future is full of changes, it seems that Strange wants to inherit my mantle, and he has to work harder. Shook his head. Ancient One waved. A golden message was directly typed out by her. Waited in place for a while. A golden portal emerged, and Li Xuan walked out of it. Sorcerer Supreme, what is your order for summoning me? Li Xuan said very low-key. I have something important to entrust to you. I will teach you a spell later. After you learn it, I will trouble you to help strengthen the seal here in the future. Ancient One said lightly. Li Xuan looked at the surrounding environment calmly, and nodded directly. But in my heart I muttered a little. Why does this place look familiar to him? Except that there is no grassland here, the mountains and the sea seem to have been seen before. But Ancient One didn't give him time to think about it. Opened the mouth. You look good. This is the Waishandi rune shackle, which is specially used to seal some powerful existences. While speaking, Ancient One moved his finger forward a little. An extremely complicated hexagonal magic circle appeared in front of Li Xuan. There are hundreds of millions of runes on it, which are more complicated than all the magic that Li Xuan has seen before. This made Li Xuan frown slightly. This magic is a bit difficult. Ding. It is detected that the host is carefully studying the magic of the gods, Waishandi rune shackles, and the god-level ability produces 100 times critical strike. You have mastered the Waishandi rune shackles. Li Xuan's worries are completely unnecessary. The god-level ability is still as powerful as ever. Just by glancing at it, he mastered this extremely powerful magic. Sorcerer Supreme, I have mastered this magic. Where do I need it? Li Xuan said. Ancient One took a deep look at Li Xuan. This magic is much more complicated than most of Kamar Taj's magic, even more complicated than the magic of some gods. The big magicians can't understand this magic. Li Xuan learned it at a glance. This ability. Probably better than the others. Ancient One's eyes softened, and he breathed a sigh of relief. Ancient One's calculations are good. She can see Li Xuan's ability. She even felt that even Strange, whom she was optimistic about, was far inferior to Li Xuan in terms of ability. As for character, it can also be taken out. He is humble, treats teachers with great respect, and loves magic. Definitely a good candidate to guard Kamar Taj. Ancient One is very satisfied with this. That's why Li Xuan was given this very complicated magic. Even the great magician of Kamar Taj has not learned such a complicated magic. Ancient One was a little shocked in his heart, but kept calm on his face, just nodded slightly. Xuan, since you have learned it, you can experiment here. Can you see the difference in this space? Li Xuan heard the words and looked carefully. A slight white, 360, light emanated from his eyes, as if there were complex runes flowing in his eyes. The surrounding scenery has become different. The void that was originally empty, suddenly appeared other things. The development of several extremely complex lightning lines and Baijin-colored runes complement each other and complement each other. Two different forces formed a very complicated structure, which even Li Xuan couldn't see clearly for a while. But at this moment, the complex blue pattern seems to be a bit damaged, and the Baijin color magic circle next to it is also a bit damaged. There is also a black breath constantly emitting. A bold guess emerged in Li Xuan's mind. This broken place looks familiar. This formation, this power, can't be the crazy woman who sealed Hela. If it is, then it will be a lot of fun. Li Xuan turned to look at Ancient One, and said. Such a complex seal. The Sorcerer Supreme sealed some kind of powerful alien creature here. It would be great if it was really an alien creature. The guys in the seal are much more difficult than the alien creatures. Ancient One shook his head with a wry smile. But it doesn't matter. For such a period of time, the people in this seal will not be able to come out for a while. If you add another seal, it should be safe and sound within a few decades. Ji Yu said with a calm face. Li Xuan couldn't help the corners of his mouth twitching. Sorcerer Supreme is too confident. Don't say decades, I'm afraid it won't last for a few years. When that old guy Odin is dead, Hela can come out easily. That would be great fun. Who knows if he will set off a butterfly effect and affect Hela. If she wins in Asgard, the other 9 worlds will suffer again. With Hela's character, that's a very likely thing to happen. It seems that Ancient One is very wise to bring him here this time. With more seals, this woman will definitely not be able to escape. Thinking of this, Li Xuan decided to use all his strength to seal Hela inside. Sorcerer Supreme, don't worry, I will do my best. Said something to Ancient One. Li Xuan has no hesitation. The spiritual power of the whole body was mobilized, and the magic power of the whole body was also mobilized by him. A large amount of Waishandi's divine power appeared in Li Xuan's hands out of thin air. In front of him, an extremely complicated rune array condensed. There are thousands of runes in just a short line. Even if a big magician came here, he would probably have to exhaust his mental power to build such a complicated thing. Not only that, the Baijin-colored Waishandi divine power is constantly rippling in this magic circle. The breath of shackles made the surrounding magic power a little dead silent. Li Xuan didn't have any reason, this seal was directly sealed in the void. In an instant, the 2 seals were integrated together, and the powerful sealing power began to ripple, directly sealing the black aura. Ancient One nodded in satisfaction. Li Xuan did not disappoint him. This seal is very powerful, and Hela's force of death was easily sealed by this powerful seal. A smile appeared on Ancient One's face. However, the smile didn't last long. The expression on her face froze. Something doesn't seem right. How does she look? Odin's tyrannical thunder and lightning power has also begun to dim a bit. This kid Li Xuan sealed Odin's powerful divine power. This kid is such a pervert. Xuan, stop. Ancient One shouted hastily. As soon as the magic power moved, he directly planned to interrupt Li Xuan's power. Pity. Late. The seal of Hela, the power of Odin took the main role. Odin has been sealing Hela with life force. The seal here is closely related to Odin. As long as Odin's vitality is strong, the seal will never be broken, and Hela can only be sealed and exiled forever. Like his kingdom of death, he was sealed in this area king. But what Ancient One didn't expect was Li Xuan's seal is too strong. It seems that there is some kind of magical power. The connection between Odin's power and the seal has been cut off. If you change it is normal. Ancient One must be elated, and directly regard Li Xuan as his successor. Can now. Not usually. As soon as Odin's power is gone. Hela naturally felt it. Starting to crazily impact the seal, the tyrannical power of death seemed to become real. Hurry up and shoot with me. Ancient One shouted again. The Baijin-colored light also lit up in his hand, and so did Li Xuan. 2 seals were printed again. Pity. It's still too late. Not only Hela is sealed here, but also her kingdom of death. It's here. No one is easy to use except Odin's power. Even if it is as strong as Ancient One, it can't resist this power if it doesn't destroy the kingdom of death immediately. Not to mention, Hela was originally a powerhouse not inferior to Ancient One. Click. 4.4. Click. The sound of cracking sounded constantly. The seal that had been strengthened for an unknown number of years slowly shattered. A powerful breath of death gushes out from it constantly. Ancient One's face immediately became serious. The seal is broken. Hela, out of trouble. Without Odin in front of them, they couldn't control it. With the shattering of the seal, the power of death, like a jet of sea water, suddenly spewed out directly. The power of death is simply frightening. If it wasn't for the 2 magicians of Kamar Taj in front of them, they would be turned into dry bones by the power of death in an instant. But, in front of Ancient One, these powers are not enough. With a wave of his hand, the power of death dissipated. But the expression on Ancient One's face didn't improve much. Norway. North Coast. The power of death is stronger than the wave. Kamar Taj's seal was also directly shaken, and soon collapsed directly. Obviously. The Gila inside probably won't take long to break out of the seal. Shuan, I won't hide from you at this moment. The one sealed in it is Odin's eldest daughter, Hela. If she is allowed to act recklessly, I am afraid there will be endless troubles, and half of the earth will be poisoned by him and turned into a dead place. We have to stop her. Ancient One looked at Li Shuan very carefully. Li Shuan smiled smartly and said, Sorcerer Supreme orders it. I have also heard the name of Hela, she is indeed a strong person. I would also like to learn about it. Li Shuan spoke with confidence. Without him. This comes from his growing strength. As he learned more magic, his strength gradually became stronger. Now, his strength has already surpassed ordinary great magicians, reaching the level of those legendary celestial masters. Only legends like Merlin and Nicole XVI of May can fight against him. If divided according to the strength of the Marvel world, he has now reached the pinnacle of human power on Earth, touching the edge of the False Father. Only one step away. It's the power of Thanos. And this is just the division of the magical power in his body, it does not represent his strength. Counting the power of magic, he is also a strong man. He naturally wanted to collide with the real strong. Therefore, Li Shuan is not only not afraid, but a little eager to try. Ancient One took a deep look at Li Shuan. I can't make a move. I must suppress the kingdom of death among the 9 kingdoms. Otherwise, the power of death in this world will pour out to our side. I'm afraid our world will be in danger by then. But you don't have to be nervous. My suppression will also reduce Hela's strength. Her strength is absolutely impossible to be at its peak. And if she is not in Asgard, her immortal power cannot be exerted. If killed, it will be resurrected in Asgard. Are you sure? Li Shuan smiled frankly. Sorcerer Supreme, if you make such a move, if I can't stop her, wouldn't I be too useless? Just do whatever you want, the disciple still has some skills. Good. I trust you. Ancient One took a deep look at Li Shuan, opened a portal and turned to leave. Before leaving, he left behind a magic spell to monitor the battlefield. If things can't be done, she will naturally provide her own power remotely. Li Shuan didn't care about these, took a deep breath, and looked at the crack in front of him exuding dark power. With a wave, the space is like broken glass, covering a large area around it. This is exactly the mirror dimension. Prevent Hela from destroying the earth. Wave again. There are 64 magic shields floating around Li Shuan. Get ready. Li Shuan just stared at the death crack. A few minutes of work. The magic seal he cast on it was completely broken. The dark crack suddenly expanded. The power of death with a miserable green light is overflowing, and any creature will feel a kind of disgust when it sees it. Through the portal, Li Shuan could see the pale green raven flying over the scorched old tree over there. It is exactly the kingdom of death that Sorcerer Supreme just mentioned. Next moment, a woman with smoky makeup, disheveled hair and miserable green armor came out of the crack. One out. Hela saw Li Shuan standing at the door. She glanced suspiciously at the crack behind her before asking. I thought it must be Odin who greeted me. I didn't expect it to be a mortal. Who are you? Kamar Taj Magician, District 117. Li Shuan turned his fingers around. Oh. Never heard of that. But it's not important, come and kneel down to meet your queen. Hela didn't intend to explore Li Shuan's identity at all. Without further ado, he spoke directly. Sorry, Ms. Hela, the magician of Kamar Taj, is not in the habit of kneeling. Li Shuan said with a sorry face. In that case, go to hell. Hela has no hesitation. It seemed that opposite her was not a living person, but a bug that could be crushed to death at will. Wipe your hands behind your back. Black hair, turned into black spikes. 2 long swords exuding astonishing death power also appeared directly in his hands. Brush. Without further ado, the black long sword in Hela's hand was thrown directly at Li Shuan. That is decisive. There is absolutely no meaning of procrastination. Sure enough, she is the goddess of death, who regards other people's lives as playthings. It's a pity that this is not Asgard, and you are not allowed to be so rampant. Li Shuan waved his hand. A few shields floated directly in front of them. Click. Several golden magic shields were pierced directly. But the power on the long sword was also exhausted. A few pairs of cards flew directly to Hela's face. She grabbed the shield in one go. Oh, little one, you have no idea what I can do. Talking. Use one hand. The magic shield actually made a teeth-piercing sound. As if it was about to be crushed. No, King Haiyan. It's because you still don't know what I can do. Boom. Li Xuan snapped his fingers. Boom. The magic shield in front of Hela suddenly exploded. The red flame directly envelops Hela. Wave again. Several magic shields were thrown out again. Boom. 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 There were several more explosions. The place where Hela stayed was already a sea of flames. Call. It sounded like a strong wind blowing in the sky. Seeing in the flames, a vortex appeared. Those flames seemed to be swallowed by a black hole. Slightly embarrassed, Hela reappeared in place. You actually hurt me. Hela's tone was a little unbelievable, but it was more angry. She is the goddess of death. Absolutely strong like Odin. He is wearing the superior battle armor cast by Asgard's dwarf. Even compared to the armor on Odin, it is not inferior at all. Her body is even more tyrannical, able to resist the attacks of scepters. But that's it. She was injured. How many years has this happened? Although it was only a broken skin injury, it was enough to amaze Hela. She didn't know how many years she hadn't tasted the feeling of being hurt. Kamar Taj. Besides Ancient One, did such a character appear? Interesting. Really interesting. The anger in Hela's heart gradually turned into excitement. She felt. When she came out this time, it was much more interesting than before. According to the eyes of normal people, Hela is just crazy. Ignore human life and enjoy the thrill of killing. Even if it was her own ethnic group, she did not slaughter all of them without hesitation. Even the old and the weak, women and children are not spared, just to fulfill the inner desire to conquer. Such a madman. At this moment, I went to see a character who could hurt me. The excitement in her heart can be imagined. There was a little anger at first, but it disappeared at the moment. How she feels now. It's like a cat playing with a mouse. Before beheading your opponent, play around. Very good, mortal, you managed to get my attention. Even if you roar, your body will become my puppet and dominate the universe for me. Hela said with an excited face. Sorry, I don't have this nature, you should find someone else. Li Xuan said lightly. Talking. With a flick of the finger. The shield in front of him flew towards Hela. The so-called explosion is art. There is no enemy that cannot be dealt with by explosions. It can't be solved, it can only show that your bomb yield is too small. Li Xuan's heart flutters. Half of the shields flew directly at Hela. Even Hela couldn't help but twitch her mouth when she saw this scene. Good guy. Just one shield broke her defense. So many now. This kid is quite vicious. But Hela didn't mean to be nervous either. Do the same thing again. You underestimate me too. I am the goddess of death. She just said that. Point forward with one hand. Suddenly dozens of miserable green ravens flew out from behind. He flew towards those magic shields. The strong power of death flashed. Those shields emitting golden light suddenly dimmed, infected by the energy of death. Snapped. Li Xuan snapped his fingers directly. The remaining shields exploded directly, but that only eliminated those ravens. There was no time for the next step. Li Xuan turned around suddenly, a golden light flashed in his hand. The golden energy chain was pulled out of his hand directly. Snapped. There was a crisp sound, and there was a trace of melting on the ground. Hela watched Li Xuan tens of meters away. What a sharp kid. Hela held two swords, Taguchi said. No, I'm just being more cautious. It's the majestic goddess of death who actually made a sneak attack. I really didn't expect it. There were thorns in Li Xuan's words, and he spoke lightly. On the battlefield, there is no such thing as a sneak attack. Hela spoke. Li Xuan raised his hand. A shield circulated beside him. Ding! A crisp sound sounded. It turned out to be Hela, through the power of talking to him. He actually used the death sword in his hand to sneak attack again. If it were an ordinary person, he would have been pierced by this attack long ago. Pity. Li Xuan has long been prepared. Why did he put the battlefield in the mirror dimension? That's why. No sneak attack could escape his eyes. Fighting. It is always inseparable from the right time, place and people. He is not as strong as Hela, and he is not on his side. It is natural to create favorable conditions of time and place. Li Xuan has done a good job on this point. Hela's sneak attack, in front of his eyes, is like a lice on a bald man's head, it's obvious. Hela doesn't know this. She thought Li Xuan was really naive and keen in perception. Very good. Your strength is beyond my imagination. I'll give you one more chance, kneel down and surrender to me. I can spare your life. Hela said incomparably proudly. A bright smile appeared on Li Xuan's face. The magic chain in his hand was drawn towards Hela. Hela followed the trend with a flash. With an incredible speed, he dodged the blow. You don't eat a toast, you eat fine wine. I don't know how to flatter. Hela said something coldly. A long sword appeared in his hand. He rushed up to Li Xuan. The magic chain in Li Xuan's hand was pulled out again towards the front. Snapped. 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 A lot of voices rang out. The ground is full of red traces of soil melting, as if countless lavas have appeared. Can't see the shadow of Hela at all. With the powerful body of the Asgardians, Hela moves so fast that he is not like a mortal at all. The fighting skills of the Asgard people were brought into full play by Hela. The long sword in his hand was either thrown away, or he used amazing body skills to avoid it. All of a sudden, Li Xuan's magic chain can't help Hela. As expected of Hela, the goddess of death. The combat skills honed from the battlefield are really extraordinary. It seems that I have to use some other powers. Li Xuan spoke appreciatively. Without further ado, a red light flashed in his hand. A scarlet belt appeared in Li Xuan's hand. He tied it at Hela. And under Li Xuan's control, this thing is very flexible. Like a spirit snake, it wound around Hela. To want this kind of means to trap me is whimsical. Hela sneered. He picked up the long sword in his hand. I want to pick off the scarlet belt directly. Pity. Li Xuan's attack, is it that simple? Not only was the scarlet belt not pulled away, but it was wrapped around the long sword in Hela's hand like a spirit snake. What? Hela was taken aback. Subconsciously, he had to abandon the long sword in his hand. But, late. She has revealed a flaw for a moment. Li Xuan said nothing. The magic chain in his hand was drawn directly on Hela's body. Her whole body was directly blown out. The battle armor on his body was directly burnt to pieces by the high risk, and burn marks were left on his body. Hela's face was full of astonishment. This magic. So strong. The reason why she was stunned just now revealed a flaw. It wasn't because his long sword was controlled. Rather, in an instant, she felt that her mother was so good that her divine power was instantly sealed. She is Hela, goddess of death. Her divine power is boundless and tyrannical. But his strength. But at that moment, it was sealed by magic for a moment. How could she not be shocked? How could she not be shocked? How could this kid's magic be so powerful? Even the original Ancient One didn't have this kind of power. Could it be that this guy, who looks like a young man, is actually an old guy? Otherwise, how could it have such tyrannical power? For a moment, Hela became suspicious. The death power on his body exploded suddenly. Directly kill Li Xuan's attack. Then he flew up in front of Li Xuan, staring at him. She was shocked by the kid's magic. Who the hell are you? Hela said with a very gloomy expression. I'm just an ordinary magician. Li Xuan said with a smile. Hela looked at Li Xuan in front of him. I think this kid is talking nonsense. Ordinary magician. Can an ordinary magician have this kind of strength? Then she twists her head off and kicks it like a ball. This kid must be an old guy. Or it is the reincarnation of an ancient god on earth. Otherwise, at this age, how could it be possible to have such a powerful force? Isn't this a joke? She is also a strong big shot who fought in the universe a long time ago. Want to lie to her? Simply fantastic. Hela sneered. With a flick of his hand, two black long swords appeared again. Your strength, even in Asgard, can be called a legendary warrior. However, I killed countless people like you thousands of years ago. Hela said coldly. Becoming an executioner is not ashamed, but proud. It's morbid. Li Xuan shook his head. Executioner. Would you apologize for stepping on an ant? You still stand on the commanding heights and accuse me. In this universe, the weak eat the strong. Only I am qualified to conquer this world. Hela said in an incomparably arrogant way. You are so powerful, how could you be sealed here by Odin for thousands of years? Li Xuan said lightly. Court death. A cold light flashed in Hela's eyes. Next to the body, the light of recording color flashed. Next moment, Hela unexpectedly appeared half a meter in front of Li Xuan. The black long sword in his hand stabbed at Li Xuan with the force of death. Li Xuan's reaction was no less impressive. Pass the magic shield in his hand to the side. Just block Hela's long sword. He even smashed the shield directly on Hela's face, making her body crooked uncontrollably. A cold light flashed in Hela's eyes. She is now even more sure that this kid is no ordinary magician, he must be an old guy. This kid's fighting instinct and fighting awareness are not comparable to ordinary people. If this kid is really an ordinary person, how could there be such amazing fighting skills? Hela was amazed in her heart. The attack was very vicious. He raised his leg and kicked at Li Xuan's vitals. If she really got her way, Li Xuan would be a chicken and egg hit at least. It's really cruel. Li Xuan dodged the blow with a dodge. The holy sword of Emperor Weishan. No hesitation. Li Xuan directly used his most powerful attack magic right now. A long sword with Baijin colored light. Without saying a word, he directly slashed in front of him. Hela directly raised his sword to block. Pyre. It's like a red-hot iron knife cut the butter directly. The long sword in Hela's hand was cut open by Baijin's long sword. What? Impossible. Hela's complexion changed. The long sword in the other hand was sent forward, forcing Li Xuan back. Hela stepped back abruptly, staring at Li Xuan firmly. How can this be? The sword of death in her hand was actually cut off. This is a weapon cast by dwarf and blessed by Odin. Coupled with her accumulation of death power for many years. It can be said. The weapon in her hand is the hardest weapon in this universe. Nothing is indestructible, nothing is indestructible. But, her weapon was chopped into pieces by a magic spell. What a joke. If magic is so powerful, what weapons do they use? Everyone does it by magic. Even her death sword, which seems to be infinitely reborn, is like magic, but it is also a forged weapon. This kid. Why cut off his weapon with magic? What kind of magic is this? In the universe, there is such a powerful magic. Asgard doesn't have such powerful magic, how can there be such a level of magic on a mere earth? Hela, who was staring at Li Xuan, didn't move for a while. Li Xuan was very calm. The sacred sword of Emperor Weishan was originally an offensive magic. Under the critical strike of a powerful god-level ability. The holy sword has become even more indestructible. But, Li Xuan was a little surprised that he cut off Hela's weapon in an instant. BGBH. Now, Ms. Hela, let's continue. I don't think you are afraid of fighting. Li Xuan said something. Next moment, he went so far as to bully him. Offensive and defensive reversal. Li Xuan took the initiative. There are several shields floating around as protection. The sacred sword in Li Xuan's hand was directly cut out. There is no trick in his attack. It's not like the powerful swordsmanship described in those movies at all. Just 3 words. O-T-E-B. But these 3 words. But it pushed Hela close to a dead end. For a while. Hela actually felt that this attack was a hard resistance, and there was no other way. Without him, Li Xuan's attack is really too fast. It was so fast that with her defensive instincts, she could only barely react. The black long sword in his hand stabbed like the tip of a needle against a wheat on. The other hand. It used dark magic. A black lightning struck at Li Xuan. It exudes a very strong breath of death, which is frightening. Li Xuan didn't have the slightest intention of retreating. The golden shield floating beside him slapped it casually, blocking the black lightning. The sacred sword in his hand slashed across. Ding! Ding! The afterimages of the 2 people collided constantly. Every collision. The weapons in your hands will collide with each other. The sound of 2 weapons colliding shattered the surrounding stones. But, soon, Hela fell into a disadvantage. It's not that her fighting skills and strength are insufficient. Rather, her weapon was completely incapable of resisting Li Xuan's magic. This made Hela couldn't help but gritted his teeth, a feeling of absurdity emerged in his heart. The highest alchemy crystal in Asgard. The powerful Uru alloy can't stop a magic. It looked like a jagged long sword. Even Hela, who has seen the world, has an ugly complexion. But Hela is Hela after all. She backed away abruptly. Wipe it with your hand. The miserable green power of death is directly attached to the long sword. Then rushed up and continued to fight with Li Xuan. Under the influence of the power of death, the sacred sword in Li Xuan's hand began to evaporate the power of death on it, instead of attacking the body of the black long sword. After Hela won for a while, Li Xuan did not lose the wind in the fight. But in Hela's heart, this is shame. When has she ever faced such a scene? Mortals. If I were in Asgard, I would have killed you long ago. Hela opened the mouth frantically. In Asgard, her methods are more than just that. Absolutely be able to kill the annoying guy in front of him. Unfortunately, this is not your home field. Li Xuan said calmly. Li Xuan's actual combat experience is indeed not enough. At least, it is incomparable with Hela, a fighter who came out of the battlefield. But his magic is powerful, and his cooperation is very tacit. In addition, his learning ability is very strong. Combat experience increases very fast. Cooperating with all kinds of magic, he can naturally fight against Hela. Definitely. If Hela is in Asgard, then the situation will be difficult to say. The Hela in Asgard and the Hela on Earth are completely two levels of existence. Plus, Sorcerer Supreme has suppressed Hela's kingdom of death, and it is inevitable that Hela is not Li Xuan's opponent at this moment. Hela, get caught without a fight, and return to the seal obediently. Otherwise, I promise, you will not end well. Li Xuan said lightly. Mortal, what a braggart. You have no idea what real death is. I am God. Hela lifted her chin and spoke. On the opposite Li Xuan, only Hela's two nostrils can be seen. God. It's the first time I've seen such a weak god. If it were Odin to say this, it would be fine. As for you, forget it, the earth is not a place for you to be presumptuous. Li Xuan Gujing said without a wave. God. There is no such thing as a god in this world. They call themselves gods, just because these guys are strong enough. Hela, on earth, falls far short of God's standard. Ignorance. You don't understand at all. I call myself the capital of God. Hela continued to speak proudly. The power of death in the body suddenly rioted. The breath of death is constantly brewing around. Li Xuan felt it. Everything around seems to be dead. Every piece of soil, every inch of molecule, seems to have stepped into death. The soil, which was originally a bit gray and decayed, turned into a dead color at this moment. Just look the same. You can only feel the desolation and dead silence. Land of the dead. Give me strength. Promise death robbery. Hela looked up and shouted. Huge amounts of roar sounded in a very wide distance around. Her originally sharp hair stood straight up. The miserable green power of death circulated continuously on her body, making her face a little green. Say it. Hela pointed at Li Xuan. A tiny miserable green light shot towards Li Xuan. It's a long time to say, but it's just a moment. Li Xuan just calmed down the magic power in his body, and the power of death had already reached his eyes. Li Xuan stands on his head. He can feel it. This blow. Ordinary magic can't stop it. But Li Xuan was not nervous either, but just glanced at Hela with confidence. Then let the force hit him. Snapped. There was a soft sound. Li Xuan turned into a sky full of green light spots. Hela looks this way. Suddenly something feels wrong. This kid. Not dead at all. Hela's pupils narrowed slightly, and the powerful force of death kept vibrating. The miserable green power covered Li Xuan's side. Half of the green light spots were directly annihilated by the power of death. But this has no effect on Li Xuan. A pale green light lit up. He is like a firefly, the green light flickering constantly. Then, the green light spot like a firefly suddenly expanded. A beautiful butterfly appeared in this space. If this is the view, the scene is stunningly beautiful. But, at this moment, Hela burst out a kind of fear from the bottom of his heart for no reason. A ray of chill rushed directly from the tailbone to the forehead. There is no hesitation. She mobilized all her divine power to surround her, surrounding her in groups. Obviously. The intuition she honed in this battle really saved her life. The miserable green light can hardly be closed. The whole space lights up. Every green butterfly. At this moment, it has become a little sun. Baijin colored light illuminated the space in an instant. The power of destruction burst out suddenly. In front of this power, everything was destroyed as if destroyed. Stones, soil, debris, residual energy. In the face of this destructive explosive force, it was nothing at all, and was instantly evaporated by the Baijin-colored light in the blink of an eye. This is far from the time to stop. The Baijin-colored light spread again, colliding with the miserable green death force around Hela. Obviously, hell is usually invincible death power. In front of this white light, it is like a castle built of sand. Push and fall. A moment of effort. This power of death was directly neutralized by the Baijin-colored light, and disappeared in an instant. The Baijin-colored light directly hit Hela's body. Her powerful divine body played a role. Under the skin, blue lines Luyin faintly emerged, which is the power of Odin. Even so, Hela still felt like her skin was being pricked by needles, the tingling was extremely painful. Even a battle-tested warrior like her felt a little painful. Baijin-colored power, like a tide, impacted Hela's defense wave after wave. Hela could only grit her teeth and resist. At this moment, it was as if a 12th-level gust of wind was blowing up in her heart. It was blown to pieces. What the hell is this magic? How can it be so powerful? Hela felt a faint threat. It seems that this power can completely kill her. This feeling made Hela a little frightened. As long as Asgard exists, she is immortal. Even if her body is crushed, she can still be resurrected from Asgard. But now, she could feel a crisis. It seems that this power can cut off her connection with Asgard and wipe away her most essential spiritual imprint. Now I feel a tingling pain in my brain. It's as if the soul is being torn apart. There was a shock in Hela's heart. In this attack, there is even a mental attack. Terrible. This kind of power is really terrifying. Even an existence like Hela, who is fearless and fearless, has a trace of fear in his heart. Fortunately, after she supported for half a day, the power of this Baijin color finally dissipated. Hela was ashamed and looked very embarrassed. The battle armor on his body was also damaged. If it wasn't for the battle armor being able to coexist with divine power, the scene would have been even uglier. Call. Hela breathed a sigh of relief, and sat on the ground without caring about the image. Ms. Hela. Now can you catch it without a fight? Li Xuan's calm voice sounded behind Hela. Hela was taken aback. The black long sword in his hand was thrown behind him without saying a word. The whole person appeared tens of meters away. Obviously, Hela has become a frightened bird. Asgard is very far from Earth. Even though both Asgard and Earth are considered to be the 9 kingdoms. But on the cosmic scale of the Marvel world, the distance between Asgard and the Earth is not ordinary. They're not even in the same galaxy. Logically speaking, everything that happens on Earth, Asgard couldn't possibly know. Because even if Asgard exploded, it would take countless billions of years for the light to reach the Earth. However, this is a world where magic exists. Odin, the god king of Asgard, is one of the best. On the Earth, the moment Hela broke the seal, Odin felt it. He who was originally sitting on the throne changed his expression instantly. Odin, who has always been extremely calm, suddenly had a flash of astonishment in his eyes. Is Ancient One desperate? How can 770 be enough to get her out? Did she even care about the Earth? Odin was a little shocked and angry for a moment. He wants to test the Earth. I didn't expect this result. Did they really ignore it and let Hela come out? Why do you want to do this? How dare they? Odin thinks, Ancient One may be crazy. If Hela is released, not only Asgard will suffer, but the entire universe will probably be rekindled. He didn't have the strength to seal Hela again. I had to prepare for the worst. Ragnarok is coming. Odin looked stunned for a moment, and he instantly aged several thousand years. There was a moment of calm. Odin forced himself to cheer up and waved. A message was sent out. After a while, Heimdall, who was guarding Bifrost, entered side by side with Thor. Your Majesty, what are your orders? Heimdall went straight to one knee. Heimdall, open Bifrost. Organizing the people is difficult because of Warnerheim. Everyone is leaving except the Royal Guard. When you leave, take the key away and seal the whole of Asgard. Odin spoke in an extremely heavy tone. Yes, Your Majesty. Heimdall's face sank, but he didn't say anything, and took the order. But Thor next to him couldn't bear it at all. Father, why is this? Why are we relocating? Why are we going to Vanaheim? Thor was very anxious. Although it is said that the 9 countries are all under the rule of Asgard, in fact, the 9 major countries all have considerable autonomy. Even though her mother was from the Vanir Protoss and was the leader of the Vanir Protoss. Vanaheim also has the deepest connection to Asgard. But they are still 2 different forces. This is equivalent to the relationship between a monarchy and a subject. Now everyone in Asgard is going to migrate. What price did they have to pay? How could Thor not be in a hurry? Odin calmed down at this moment, and spoke in a calm tone. Son, Ragnarok is coming, and Asgard must leave if it wants to survive. I will do my best to bring Ragnarok's fall to Asgard. Ragnarok. But father, I have killed Surta. I brought back his skull and put it in your treasure house. Can't even this prevent the coming of Ragnarok? Thor said anxiously. Son, Ragnarok, it's not as simple as you think. This is the crisis that could destroy Asgard. You go, take Loki, go to Vanaheim too, and don't come back. Odin said lightly. But, Thor still wanted to speak. No but. This is an order. Go. Odin said something coldly. The stick of the sun in his hand was pushed down heavily. Seeing this, Thor didn't dare to say more, so he could only turn around and leave. Odin looked at Thor's back with a kind face. But after a while, the loving expression on his face disappeared, revealing a serious expression, and immediately restored his essence of the King of God. Just let me see what's going on Earth. Ancient One, what the hell are you doing? Odin said incomparably indifferently. A wave. The blue thunder lighted up around him. After a while, this blue thunder unexpectedly formed a blue thunder raven. The black space light flashed. The blue thunder raven suddenly entered the black crack and disappeared directly. Next moment, the image of the earth surfaced in Odin's one eye. And Odin lived up to his title of the King of God. He is one of the top magicians in the 9 realms. The blue thunder raven saw the scene in the mirror dimension. But, see the scene here. Even Odin was taken aback. This is impossible. Hela actually fell behind. Odin was shocked. That's Hela. He was only slightly inferior to him in his heyday. In his old age, Hela could even cause Ragnarok to easily destroy Asgard, which is also considered a dominant force in the universe. But did he read it right? Hela is being pressed and beaten. Who the hell is this kid? What about Ancient One? Kamar Taj actually has a magician that is not inferior to Ancient One. Why didn't I know? Odin was a little shocked. The young magician. So amazing. Although it looks young, every spell has a terrifying power. A guy as powerful as Hela was directly suppressed. Even if Hela isn't in Asgard. But that's Hela too. Those in the universe can also become the Overlord, the Hela that made countless civilizations change color. On the Earth, such an ordinary-looking magician suppressed Hela. What is this unfolding? This guy, Ancient One, didn't he release 4.3 Hela as a sparring partner for this kid? Odin couldn't help but have an absurd thought in his mind. Subsequently, he shook his head again. Impossible. Ancient One is not so dodgy. She is the Sorcerer Supreme who protects the Earth. So, the rest may be. The kid he observed was really too perverted. I'm afraid even Ancient One didn't expect it. It's incredible. Among human beings, such a blessed person can still appear. What an amazing race. Odin sighed sincerely. Among human beings, there are too many geniuses. However, fortunately, because of the existence of this kid. Looks like I can have a little more time. Odin thought to himself. It was also because of the birth of this young magician. He had a little more chance to breathe. Odin is able to see things on Earth. Li Xuan didn't know Odin at this moment, his jaw almost dropped from shock. Of course he didn't know what happened in Asgard. But, his mastery of the mirror dimension is amazing. But still found something wrong. He felt as if something was watching him. Regardless of Hela who dodged aside, Li Xuan's mental strength suddenly increased. His spiritual power is closely combined with the mirror dimension. Soon, he is in the sky. Found a raven hidden in deep space. If it weren't for the mirror dimension here, he might not be able to see this raven. Whose method is this? This kind of power is so strong. Li Xuan felt the powerful aura contained in the raven, and was a little shocked in his heart. The master of this power is stronger than him. Maybe, it has already reached the level of Sorcerer Supreme. Could it be Odin? Li Xuan couldn't help being suspicious in his heart. The movements on hand 16 did not show any intention of stopping. With a wave of his hand, he directly crushed the raven that was suspected to have been created by Odin. Shook his head. Li Xuan looked at Hela over there. The power of death on her body is simply a level weaker than before. It can be seen that she is working hard to extract the power of death from an unknown place. But Sorcerer Supreme is obviously not for dry rice. Hela didn't get much support. Seeing Li Xuan staring at her like this, Hela gritted her teeth and said, "You still have accomplices. Partners. Ms. Hela, that's not a good thing for you to say. The one who is with you can be called an accomplice, and the one who is with me can only be regarded as a partner of justice." Li Xuan spoke without blinking his eyes. "However, it doesn't matter anymore, it's all trivial. The point is, are you ready to re-enter the seal?" Li Xuan said. He didn't intend to kill Hela. Not to mention that Hela didn't do him any harm. It is Odin's family, which prevents him from doing anything. They can fight within their own family, but if you do it, then the whole family might join forces to tease you. Just look at Thor and Loki. How much trouble did Loki get into? Isn't he alive and kicking? Would it be possible without Odin's protection? Died long ago, I don't know how many times. Same goes for Hela. God knows, what is the relationship between Hela and Odin? What if Odin came after him after all his efforts to kill Hela? It's no good, and it also provoked a whole body of meat. He doesn't do such stupid things. The best thing is to let Hela come out there, go back there, and everyone is happy. It is clear. Hela doesn't think so. Let me go back. Don't even think about it, I want to rule the entire universe. Even if I die, I won't go back. You can't stop me. Hela gave Li Xuan a bitter look, turned around and ran away. The whole person turned into a miserable green light, which disappeared instantly. Her heart was full of resentment. If this is not the Earth, how could she be in such a mess? If this was in Asgard, Li Xuan would have died a long time ago. When I return to Asgard, I regain my power. I will come back, and I will bring the army of death and crush the entire Earth. This kid will die too. Hela thought bitterly in her heart, then turned around and ran wildly. But, after flying for a while, she suddenly realized something was wrong. She doesn't seem to be flying very far. Isn't it strange why you couldn't escape? Li Xuan's unhurried voice sounded again. Hela suddenly turned her head and saw Li Xuan, who was not far from her. Hela suddenly realized something. Space realm. Hela gritted her teeth and said these few words. It's not that powerful, it's just a magic spell. Li Xuan said very modestly. When? Hela said coldly again. At first. Before I fought with you, I had included this surrounding area within my magic range. I was just a little cautious, and I didn't expect to be able to use it. Li Xuan spoke very humbly. Hela's mouth twitched when she heard this. This teaches a little caution. A little. For a possible battle, he shrouded the range of hundreds of kilometers in his own magic. What pervert is this? Moreover, what kind of magic is this? Can it cover such a huge area? This is too scary, right? Even Odin. Magic is not so exaggerated. This is equivalent to a huge amounts of city. It's an exaggeration. This kid's magic is really perverted. Hela suppressed the shock in her heart, and spoke again. You have the foresight. But I want to go, you can't stop me. As he said that, a green light flashed around Hela. Her whole body was like a long arrow piercing through the air, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Li Xuan just smiled at the corner of his mouth. Innocent. Want to run in the mirror dimension. This is no ordinary space. Li Xuan said something to himself. Snapped. He snapped his fingers directly. A strange scene happened. The Hela who fled away originally flew over again. Meet Li Xuan who suddenly appeared. Hela was also dumbfounded. She just broke through the confinement of space and left. Why are you back now? What means? You confuse my perception with space. Hela stared at Li Xuan bitterly. This is just a trick. Compared to Hela's methods, I am still inferior. Li Xuan spoke very modestly. Stop being hypocritical, you're just as disgusting as Odin. When I return from Asgard, it will be your death. Hela said very indifferently. You still want to leave. You are really optimistic. Li Xuan said something. Reach out and grab it. The ground trembled suddenly. Sudden. A big hand made of concrete burst out of the ground and grabbed Hela. Hela's original indifferent expression suddenly changed. In her heart, she was even more horrified. It doesn't matter if you master the space, but you can even master the land. What means? Not even Asgard's magic can do this. This kid is really a monster. She had heard before that in this universe, there were gods greater than them. She didn't believe it before. But now it seems. This is very likely to be true. Hela was horrified in her heart, and suddenly reacted in her heart. You can't stay here anymore, or you will really be trapped here. Leave even if you pay the price. Hela gave Li Xuan a bitter look, her eyes were full of hatred. Next moment. On her body, the power of death erupted suddenly. A black light flashed. Hela actually disappeared. Norway. Hela paid the price and forcibly tore a portal to leave. This really surprised Li Xuan. He knew that Hela must have mastered the ability of space teleportation. Their family will have this powerful black magic. But, tear apart the space in the mirror dimension, this is not something ordinary people can do. It wouldn't surprise him if Odin in his prime could do it. But now Hela. It seems that Hela must have paid a lot for leaving here. Otherwise it wouldn't be so easy to tear up my space. Li Xuan touched his chin and muttered to himself. The mirror dimension is a very special dimension. According to the theory of Ancient One. If you don't use Sling Ring and Kamar Taj's magic, you can't even open the portal to the outside world, to other worlds. Actually, this statement is not accurate. If you let Wei Shandy come here, even the mirror dimension of Ancient One can't be trapped. Actually, it also depends on the strength of the enemy. As long as the strength reaches a certain level, it can completely tear the mirror image dimension. If in Asgard, Hela may have such great power. But on Earth, she must have used other forces. Hela, this guy sure has a grudge. Forget it, letting her go is an explanation to Odin. Li Xuan couldn't help but sigh. This is the downside of protecting the Earth. It is easy to offend people. But, since he learned magic in Kamar Taj, this responsibility is his responsibility. Otherwise, wouldn't he be AB*********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** it. Beside him, a golden light emerged. A golden portal opened, and Ji Ri walked out from it. But, Ancient One looked a little pale, as if he had expended a lot of strength. Sorcerer Supreme, you have worked hard. Li Xuan said respectfully. If it weren't for Ancient One to suppress the Kingdom of Death, Hela must be much stronger than now. I don't have anything, I just spent a little bit of energy. It's not easy for you to fight Hela, right? Ancient One looked up at Li Xuan and said. Fine. The current Hela is not very strong, I can still handle her strength. Li Xuan spoke very modestly. Hear this. Ancient One couldn't help the corner of his mouth twitching. Good guy. Listen, is this a human language? Isn't Hela very strong? If those who were killed by Hela heard this, they might be able to liven up. Hela is the goddess of death. Takes over the power of death in Asgard. Death is a very powerful law, and in the hands of the strong Hela Asgard, its power is even more astonishing. It can be said. Hela is definitely a powerhouse. In Li Xuan's eyes, is it not strong? This kid. Thinking of this, Ancient One was also a little curious. Li Xuan, how did he deal with Hela? Think here. Green light flickered in Ancient One's eyes. The surrounding scenery seems to be reversed, presented to the eyes of Ancient One. Watch a replay of this scene. Ancient One is getting more and more surprised. What the hell? Li Xuan has been beating Hela. What kind of international joke is this? Even if the power of the Kingdom of Death is suppressed, Hela is also very strong. Besides, what is the magic in this kid's hand, and why is it so powerful? Such a powerful force. Some magic has even surpassed the Ancient One. Is this kid so perverted? The expression on Ancient One's face changed, revealing a slightly shocked expression. There was also a storm in my heart. If the previous magic was still limited to the concept of proficiency, Li Xuan's transformation of Hogarth's ancient body, it can already be said to be another way, and it has become a new magic. Distribute Hog's unruly divine power among so many small butterflies. Produce violent explosions, resulting in unparalleled killing history. It can be said. This move alone is not something that an ordinary magician can do. Such a magic. It will allow Li Xuan to be recorded in the history books and become one of the legendary magicians. This ability. It was shocking to hear, and tears to the eyes of those who saw it. It can be said that it is shocking and weeping ghosts and gods, which is not an exaggeration. It's not that Ancient One hasn't seen the world. But this kid is too exaggerated. After some difficulty, Ancient One restrained his expression and concealed his gaffe. She took a deep look at Li Xuan. She felt. They should think about passing the Sorcerer Supreme seat to Li Xuan. As for Strange, it would be great to be Li Xuan's underdog. Ahem, Sorcerer Supreme, why are you looking at me like that? Li Xuan said with a little scalp numbness. Nothing, just thinking about something. It's about Hela, we have to deal with it. If you beat a wolf, you will not die, but you will suffer from it. You should understand this truth. Ancient One said with a blank face. What do you mean? Just go after him and kill Hela. Li Xuan said with a surprised face. Ancient One, is it so fierce? It's not like the Ancient One in his impression at all. Xuan, you have to remember, we have to hold the heart of a bodhisattva and act like a thunderbolt. We don't have a choice when it comes to dangerous people. We offended Hela today, and she will definitely not let it go. If the legendary Death Army returned, the earth would be destroyed. We Kamar Taj will cease to exist. Humanity will enter the Dark Age again, those Luo Li who are ruled by the gods. Ancient One said with a very heavy face. Heard Ancient One say so. The expression on Li Xuan's face also became very serious. Sorcerer Supreme, I understand. Li Xuan nodded. However, Sorcerer Supreme, Hela is the daughter of God King Odin after all. Is it okay if we make a move? Don't worry about that, monies. Odin is not good at disciplining his daughter, we help him discipline it. He still dares to have an opinion. Ancient One said domineeringly. Odin is better than her. But, that's when he doesn't use the time gem. In the case of using gems, she can hang and work. If Odin has any crap, she must go up and reason with Odin. Li Xuan heard Ancient One say that. Suddenly stunned. No wonder. No wonder the name of Ancient One is well known throughout the multi-universe. Such a domineering look. It really deserves the title of Sorcerer Supreme. Good. Come to Kamar Taj, really come. Li Xuan felt flattered. Immediately, he spoke very seriously. Sorcerer Supreme, don't worry, I'm going to track down Hela and see where she went. I will return to your life when I come back. Li Xuan said. Asgard is a very prosperous place. Even in the universe. There is also a rare place that can be as brilliant as Asgard. Powerful magic technology has been brought to the extreme in the hands of Asgard's technicians. Asgard. It is a place where miracles are born. But the current Asgard looks a bit bleak. The golden spaceships that could be seen everywhere on the streets have long since disappeared. As if the city emptied overnight. In fact, and indeed it is. The whole of Asgard was completely relocated, everything of value was taken away, not even a dog was left. Certain things that cannot be taken away, such as Pegasus farms, can only be left after destructive mining. It can be said, in the whole of Asgard, there is only depression left. Only among Asgard, there is still popularity. Odin sits high on the throne. Below him, is Asgard's most elite 5,000 royal guards. The golden battle armor was mighty and domineering, and the aura of killing the Japanese stock came oncoming. These guards who fought with Odin in the universe are definitely the first-class army in the universe. Odin watched from above. The royal guard did not move at all. Like a stone sculpture. 270 to see. Know what they are waiting for. They just waited so slowly, and they waited for half a day. Sudden. There was a Wang Ming sound. A black crack suddenly appeared. Dark green light flickered. A figure hurriedly stepped out of the crack. With disheveled hair, the battle armor on his body is also a bit dilapidated, and he looks very embarrassed. I saw this figure appear. Thunder flashed in Odin's eyes, and blue thunder flashed constantly beside the eye mask. Leaning on the sun scepter, he stood up directly from the throne. Hela. You're here after all. Hela, who came out of the crack in embarrassment, didn't respond to Odin's words immediately, but turned to the sky and took a deep breath intoxicated. I have come back to inherit my kingdom, Odin. The corners of Hela's mouth curled up slightly, looking at Odin and speaking. This is not your kingdom. This is Asgard, it does not welcome you, you will only bring death. Odin slaps the ground hard. All Asgard trembles. That's not what you said, Odin, back then. Did you forget that half of BGCB, Asgard's territory, was conquered by me? Besides, it's not up to you whether Asgard welcomes me or not. Hela said coldly. I'll stop you like before. Odin said loudly. Stop me. What are you doing to stop me? You are old and frail now, and your strength is less than half that of your heyday. The Valkyrie army, which you regard as your right and left hand, was also killed and wounded by me. Without those Valkyries draining my strength, why would you stop me? Is it based on the trash in front of you? Hela spoke loudly suddenly. The divine power of death that had been sluggish in her body suddenly burst out again. All of a sudden, the momentum of the 5,000 royal guards was actually suppressed. Hela's strength can be imagined as average. Odin has no hesitation. Royal Guard. Attack. Pointing to the front, all the royal guards rushed forward under the leadership of several warriors. Odin was in front of his throne, watching coldly, unmoved at all. Seeing these royal guards rushing up, Hela showed an exaggerated smile on his face. Odin, you are still hypocritical, you are still that coward. You don't even dare to face me, and let your loyal subordinates come down to die. Well, as you wish. Hela waved her hand away. 2 black long swords appeared in his hands. Alone, he rushed up to the 5,000 royal guards with no fear on his face. Just a dodge effort. 2 members of the elite royal guard fell down directly. There was a black aura exuding from their wounds, obviously Hela's death force was at work. This power of death is even more terrifying than poison, and it kills when touched. Compared with Hela's high damage, the royal guard's attack is a bit painless. Even if they have magic weapons in their hands, they can still emit high energy beams. But when it hit Hela, it was completely painless. In contrast to Hela, it's just crazy sharks. One among the crowd, 7 in and 7 out. After a while, dead bodies lying on the ground. But Odin, still unmoved, with incomparable indifference in his eyes. Now, his demeanor of the king of God is fully displayed. Those royal guards are indeed the elite of Asgard. Without the slightest intention of retreating, they rushed forward one by one. Ordinary human army, 30% of the damage may be defeated, and 50% of the damage without collapse can be regarded as elite. In the era of cold weapons, fighting in the army is a moment of blood and courage. But the royal guard, watching the surrounding teammates fall down one by one like being cut wheat, did not even change the expression on their faces. Consume the power of Hela one after another. 10 minutes passed. 5,000 royal guards fell to the ground. Hela didn't have the slightest scar on her body, but looked refreshed instead. My dear father, now it's your turn. Hela stood in front of Odin, looking at Odin on the stage, with a very complicated expression on his face. Excitement, anxiety and so on. At this time, Odin finally stood up from the stage. Hela, you shouldn't be coming back. Today, let me end this mistake with my own hands. Odin held the stick of the sun in his hand, and the power emperor all over his body was on fire. Even life began to burn at this moment. Thunder was beside him and he was crackling and jumping. The surrounding ground made of expensive metal was directly shattered under the action of the thunder. Odin. He couldn't even control the power in his body. Even Hela, the expression on her face turned serious. Old guy, you don't want to die. If you do this, your soul will cease to exist. Hela said loudly. What happens after death is what you say. Let me open up a new future for Asgard again. Audi held up the scepter in his hand. Click. There was a thunderous explosion in the sky. In just a few seconds, the sky dimmed. The expression on Hela's face turned into horror. Suddenly aroused his strength. The ground suddenly exploded, and countless black spikes appeared from under her feet, covering it instantly. Click. In the sky, thunder poured down. For a while, half Asgard became a sea of thunder and lightning, and before this power all vanished. Those magnificent golden buildings melted directly. It took half a day. The blue thunder dispersed. Odin's figure also disappeared. Only half of the melted scepter was left, still sticking stubbornly in place. It seems to be the last sound of the King of God. Kamar Taj. Li Xuan stood in the hall. He looked at Ancient One in front of him in a daze. Didn't they promise to trouble Hela? How come back to Kamar Taj? What's happening here? Sorcerer Supreme, shouldn't we go after Hela? Let's go back to Kamar Taj, shall we not give Hela time to recover? Li Xuan spoke calmly, sensibly. Not only that, there was a faint worry in his heart. Hela is no loner widow. Her subordinates include not only the monster-like giant wolf Fenrir, but also countless dead troops. This gives Hela time to recover. What's up with Sorcerer Supreme? Li Xuan was puzzled, but he became very calm. That's why I called you back. Ancient One said slowly. She picked up the teacup in front of her, took a sip of tea, and the expression on her face eased a little. Sorcerer Supreme, what do you mean by that? Li Xuan said strangely. To deal with Hela, we have to figure it out slowly. You have to increase your strength again. Although your magic power is very powerful, your ability is also outstanding. But it's not enough to deal with the immortal Hela. Ancient One sighed and said. Li Xuan is indeed a genius. But his exposure to magic was still too short. The big magician who guided him before had no understanding of law at all. And if you want to reach the level of Godfather, you must understand the law. Law is like a lever, a stick. It is possible to use the power of tiny particles to leverage massive amounts of energy. This is the reason why Heavenly Father Strong is so powerful. If you want to deal with Hela, you must master the law. Otherwise, if Hela uses the law attack, Li Xuan will have a hard time. If it wasn't for her to suppress the Death Kingdom, one of the 9 great kingdoms, before, then Li Xuan must not be able to win Hela so easily. Only law can fight against law, no matter how powerful magic is, there is no exception. This is the confrontation of roads, the difference in understanding of the nature of the world. Ancient One turned to look at Li Xuan, and spoke earnestly. Xuan, you have to understand. Hela is as strong as I want to be, not to mention she has returned to Asgard. If you go through this situation, you will definitely suffer a lot. If Hela is really determined, even if you can escape, the loss will not be worth the loss. I understand, Sorcerer Supreme, what do you say I should do? Li Xuan said very sincerely. Li Xuan has a very clear understanding of herself. Because he knows the Marvel world well. Say nothing else. Those mighty dimensional Mephisto, mutants from other parallel universes, with whom he is not qualified to fight right now. In this world, there are too many wall hangings. Li Xuan feels that one must keep a low profile in order to survive in this world. So every time he makes a shot, he is sure. Regarding Hela, to be honest, all his knowledge comes from the memory movies of his previous life. But movies are deceiving. In the movie, Captain America, who can kick a car flying with one kick and hold a helicopter abruptly, even fights back and forth with several special forces. Logically speaking, he should be able to turn people into flesh with one punch. For the sake of his own life, Li Xuan felt that Ancient One was right. He is so humble. Instead, Ancient One choked. After half a day, Ancient One took a strange look at Li Xuan. She sometimes feels that Li Xuan, a young man in his 20s, is more stable than her, 100-year-old. Not only good ability, but also so stable. This kid is going to be great. Ancient One couldn't help thinking in his heart. After thinking for a while, Ancient One spoke again. So, I know you're going to fight Hela. I will guide you. How much you can comprehend depends on your comprehension. Thank you, Sorcerer Supreme. Li Xuan said very modestly. 1. First of all, first determine your position as a big magician. Ancient One said lightly. Big magician. Has he become a great magician now? This is too sloppy, did you even follow a formality? Seeing the expression on Li Xuan's face, Ancient One also smiled. At this moment, Li Xuan, the group has a somewhat young appearance. Don't be surprised. Kamar Taj's Great Magician, it's like an honorary title, not an official title. It's just a common name that was agreed upon later. As long as I approve, don't call yourself a big magician, Sorcerer Supreme is fine. Ancient One said lightly. Li Xuan couldn't help but slapped his mouth when he heard this. Good guy. Sorcerer Supreme deserves to be Sorcerer Supreme. This name is really not what she claimed, but punched and kicked out. At this moment, there is naturally domineering here. He had been deceived by the kindness of the Ancient One in the movie before. Now she is just showing off. What can Li Xuan do? He could only bow his hands and say yes, appearing very humble. Ancient One smiled, and then said, "You've become a great magician, just let the matter of Caecilius go on. The main reason is that with the qualifications of a great magician, if I teach you something, no one will be able to say anything. It's not a violation of our Kamar Taj rules." Li Xuan nodded secretly. There is some expectation in my heart. What is the Sorcerer Supreme trying to teach him? Really looking forward to it. Ancient One. But Kamar Taj has been the only true god for hundreds of years. Kamar Taj also produced many magicians, but none of them had the power and prestige of Ancient One. What she has mastered, it can be said that Li Xuan has been greedy for a long time. Why did he stay in Kamar Taj? Isn't that what the picture is about? Thinking of this, Tuan felt a little awkward and embarrassed for a while. Ahem, Sorcerer Supreme, what you said is correct. Kamar Taj's big magician must have a face. If you teach me dozens or even hundreds of high-level magic, I will bear it with gritted teeth. Li Xuan spoke uprightly. You kid thinks it's pretty. High-level magic, where is it so easy to learn? Also, you have to remember that everything in the world is balanced. If you want to be strong, you will naturally have to pay a sufficient price. Having too much power is sometimes not a good thing. Ancient One took a deep look at Li Xuan, but there was something deep in his eyes. Li Xuan was taken aback. Then he continued to look at Ancient One with shining eyes. He knows. Kamar Taj's magician is flawed. Essentially, all of the magician's powers are borrowed. It is indeed very powerful, but it will pay huge amounts of price when it dies. Even while alive, there is a price to pay. When Doctor Strange was knocked down, he couldn't even eat like a normal person in order to gain great power. Li Xuan naturally knew this. But he thinks. Ancient One is honest in evading debt with the help of eternal power. But Ancient One doesn't understand that sometimes, it's the uncle who owes the debt. Li Xuan, who has a god-level ability, doesn't care about these things at all. Li Xuan looked at Ancient One with burning eyes. The expression on his face was very sincere. Ancient One couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Well, you don't have to look at me. I will definitely not teach you high-level magic now. The high-level magic you have mastered is enough. Ancient One spoke. Then Sorcerer Supreme, what are you going to teach me? Li Xuan asked. Definitely teaches you the law. Ancient One spoke definitely. Law. What is this? Li Xuan asked. You can see it as a road, or a direction. Law is the cornerstone of this world. Everything in this world is made of law. Everything can be interpreted in terms of law. You can also think of it as a road, the road we are going to take. 4 equals. Ancient One spoke very cautiously. He has also heard a lot about law. Everyone has different interpretations, even in different literary works, there are different interpretations. I don't know what the law in Ancient One means. The way of law can only be felt, not expressed in words. What you say is false after all, I'll show you a demonstration. While talking, he swiped his hand. A portal opened right next to her. With Li Xuan, Ancient One walked in directly. Seeing Li Xuan's puzzled face, she spoke. This is a mirror dimension I constructed with Eye of Agamotto. The flow of time inside is different from outside, so you can learn the way of law well. Li Xuan's heart vibrated. Ancient One is really unfathomable. You can change the flow of time in a space at your fingertips. Even with the help of Eye of Agamotto, this power is shocking. Just look at what happened to Thanos and Iron Man. There is a price to pay for using the tyrannical power of infinite gems. Ancient One did it easily. This power. It's unimaginable. Thinking of this, Li Xuan became more and more looking forward to it. Ancient One has a strong capital, and they want to take a look. Seeing the expression on Li Xuan's face, Ancient One also knew that he couldn't wait any longer. He spoke directly. Look carefully, I will show you a demonstration. As she spoke, a golden magic shield appeared in her hand with a wave of her hand. Do you see anything? Ancient One asked. At the same time, I looked at Li Xuan with great anticipation. Your magic shield doesn't seem so perfect. But Li Xuan was greatly shocked. He always thought. Only by using magic to the extreme can it exert powerful power. But now he found out. There is another way. Ancient One's shield is not perfect, and not many features are used. But powerful and terrifying. Li Xuan estimated that it would be difficult for him to break through Ancient One's magic shield with powerful law. What an incredible thing. He is not weak anymore. Even Hela has been beaten away, but Yi's demon may not be able to break. Is this the law? Interesting. Li Xuan was shocked. He figured it out now. Law, it seems to be adding encryption. Like aluminum alloy. Pure aluminum is very soft and has low hardness. But after adding other materials and alloys, the properties of aluminum alloys are changed, and the hardness is increased to a high degree. The law has played such a role. Or, law can use one force to leverage greater power and a higher level. The disciple understands a little bit. Law really has infinite uses. Li Xuan couldn't help sighing. That's right, law is indeed infinitely useful. This is the most magical power in the universe. Ancient One also sighed. I'll show you one more time. You have a good look at it yourself, and slowly comprehend it. In this mirror dimension, you don't have to worry about time. While talking, the magic shield in Ancient One's hand began to change. Runes one by one began to be disassembled from the magic shield, rays of light, structures one by one. Ancient One disassembled the magic in a painstaking manner, and showed it to Li Xuan. Ding! Detecting that the host is learning the foundation of the world, law, God-level ability to produce 100 times critical strike. You have mastered the law of force. Li Xuan. Wrong. Very wrong. For the first time, Li Xuan felt that there was something wrong with his God-level ability. He's a magician. Noble master. What does it mean to comprehend the law of force? Is it really the same as Gandalf, full of critical strikes, holy sword in hand, and magic, can go up and fight with the Balrog just by ordering holy light? But Gandalf was originally a demigod, not a man. Li Xuan felt that if he played like this, he would definitely die without a place to bury him. Li Xuan was complaining in his heart when the system notification sounded again. Ding! Detecting that the host is learning the foundation of the world, law, God-level ability to produce 100 times critical strike. The host has mastered the light law. The system beep sounded again. The expression on Li Xuan's face was a little weird. This law can also double ring. Ancient One didn't tell him there would be such a situation. The Ancient One over there saw Li Xuan's weird expression and thought he hadn't grasped it, so he comforted him. Xuan, don't worry. It is very difficult to comprehend the law, and many people never comprehend it in their lifetime. Even in history, there were not so many people who could comprehend the law. No one can easily comprehend law except those who are born gods. Li Xuan was just in a daze. Raise your hand. A ray of light appeared in Li Xuan's hand. This Ancient One's eyes widened suddenly, and Jing's heart was turned upside down. The small fan in her hand was crushed by her directly. Is this the light law? How can this be? Ancient One's inner turmoil. Li Xuan, this kid, really understood the law at a glance. This is a joke. Even for her, it took her hundreds of years of effort to comprehend law back then. After so slowly polishing, I finally comprehended the law along the path of Agamotto. But Li Xuan just glanced at it. Without any precipitation, he actually comprehended his own law. This ability is really too scary. Even the ancient gods who were naturally raised back then were not so exaggerated. They are born with their own laws, rather than comprehending other laws. The ability that Li Xuan is showing now, even stronger than those ancient gods in the legend. It is not surprising that Li Xuan can comprehend the law, Ancient One. Li Xuan's ability is definitely the most outstanding she has ever seen. Probably equivalent to hundreds of stranges. So, understanding the law is not a problem for Li Xuan. The issue is, this kid also comprehends too fast. Ancient One thinks, even if Li Xuan's ability is outstanding, it will take a month to comprehend it, right? Unexpectedly, this kid Li Xuan really didn't play his cards according to common sense. Just glanced at it. He actually learned it again. This kid. It's a beast. Ancient One was shocked in his heart. But then there was a burst of ecstasy. Li Xuan comprehends the law, at least to be able to live another 100 years. Kamar Taj has a successor. She was severely injured when she was young, and needed to extend her life by absorbing the power of the dark space. Even if she doesn't die this time, she probably won't live long. Kamar Taj has a successor, which really relieved Ancient One's hanging heart. Very good, Shuan. Your ability is really outstanding. Even if I was back then, I'm not as good as you. Since you have comprehended the law of light, you should practice hard. This is a magnificent way. Ancient One said happily. Yes, Sorcerer Supreme. But how to practice this law? Li Shuan asked. If you understand the natural law between the universe, you will naturally be able to improve. The law is not static. Everyone's law is different. You just need to experience it with your heart. The law in your body will naturally grow by itself. You have to remember that your heart is powerful for you. We don't abuse the natural power of the universe, but we also don't want to be manipulated by the laws of nature. Ancient One spoke cautiously. Li Shuan nodded. It seems to understand a little bit, but there are new doubts that follow. Sorcerer Supreme, law exists in nature, how can it be different? Li Shuan spoke again. Hearing Li Shuan's question, Ancient One nodded approvingly. Then he opened his mouth slowly. The law of nature is indeed there, but every intelligent creature is different. Our circumstances and experiences define who we are. These natures also affect our understanding of nature. As the saying goes, there are 1,000 Hamlets in the eyes of 1,000 people. The same law is completely different in the eyes of different people. Not to mention, some laws are not naturally raised, but created by creatures. Ancient One patiently explained to Li Shuan. Can living things create laws? Li Shuan asked in surprise. That's natural. In the ancient East, there was a so-called sword law. At the beginning of the universe, where was there such a thing as a sword? This is something created by intelligent creatures. Later we influenced the world, and more people comprehended this kind of path, and there are also various kinds of kendo, and everyone has their own way. The same is true of any law. It is very pure at the beginning, and then it changes. Ancient One continued to explain. Fearing that Li Shuan would not understand, she spoke again. I'll give you another example. Light and darkness, for example, are completely opposite concepts in our eyes. Light is positive and darkness is negative. But in fact, darkness and light are natural phenomena that exist in nature, and there is no distinction between good and evil. It's just that intelligent creatures have mixed their own understanding and will, and the law of darkness and light has changed. So you have to remember that we manipulate the law, and absolutely cannot let the law manipulate you. We can fear the world, but we cannot obey the world. Ancient One explained earnestly, and after a while, his saliva was dry. Li Shuan suddenly realized. It was as if the big Lu Huang bell was ringing next to his ears, and he became enlightened in an instant. The understanding of law has suddenly increased a lot. Ding! It is detected that the host obeys the teaching of Ancient One, and the God-level ability produces 100 times critical strike. You understand the law of darkness. Your understanding of law has increased 100-fold. The system's prompt sounded in Li Shuan's ears. He suddenly felt the power in his body increase a lot. Just a wave. A black light appeared in front of them. Or, it cannot be called light, but a black shadow, object. In that area, all the light is gone. Only pure dark power remains. What? Dark law. Ancient One let out an exclamation, and the sound was a bit shapeshifting. Such a gaffe. It was the first time it appeared on Ancient One. It can be seen how shocked she has been at this moment. You have actually comprehended two completely opposite laws. Shuan, are you okay? Ji Yu grabbed Li Shuan's hand. But found out. Li Shuan is extremely stable both physically and magically, without any conflict at all. How is this going? She can't understand. How did you comprehend the law of darkness and light at the same time? Ancient One asked. That's how I understood it. Li Shuan scratched his head. Question mark. What is comprehension? Where is it so easy? Of course. Light and darkness are natural phenomena in nature, and there is no so-called opposite. But, Li Shuan is human. The prejudice in his heart will prevent him from comprehending these two opposing things. In serious cases, there may be a conflict of laws. The body and magic power exploded directly. This is very serious. But Li Shuan didn't see this at all. This is simply a miracle. Ancient One looked at Li Xuan with a very strange expression. It was like watching another monster. Li Xuan's ability is too exaggerated. Even if it is a god, it is not so exaggerated, right? I am afraid that only the ancient gods born in the legend can have this ability. They can become gods when they reach adulthood. What about Li Xuan? If he grows up, will he also become a god? Ancient Time actually feels a bit difficult to grasp. She doesn't know where Li Xuan will go in the future. His ability is really amazing. Ancient One looked at Li Xuan and let out a breath. Okay, you don't need to practice here, you can go directly to Asgard. I think Hela will probably cry when she sees you now. Ancient One sighed. Now she doesn't just feel that Hela can't deal with Li Xuan. Still think. Maybe Hela, I'm afraid he will be bullied very badly. What happens in the mirror dimension can only be limited to the mirror dimension. But the world of Marvel is a very powerful world. There are countless powerful people in the whole world. Some strong people have incredible abilities. Like the 5 great gods, they even have the ability to destroy the entire multi-universe with one thought. And the strong one whom Kamar Taj worships, the Great Trinity, the god of white magic, also has such great power. Agamotto is one of the Trinity. Nature is also very powerful. What happens in the mirror dimension is unknown to others. However, Agamotto found some ripples in the long river of fate, and found something wrong. Among Kamar Taj, a genius appeared again. You actually comprehended the law of light. This kid, Ancient One, is really lucky. Agamotto smiled. He is still very optimistic about Ancient One. Among the many white magic inheritors in the multi-universe, Ancient One is one of the most capable ones. Kamar Taj is also his legacy. So he has been very concerned about Kamar Taj. Unexpectedly, with such attention, a genius came out of attention. Good, very good. Kamar Taj can be said to have a successor. Even if Ancient One is at the end of its lifespan, it has no regrets. This child's ability is much better than that of Ancient One. Agamotto held a book and rested in his heart. While thinking, one side cast more eyes on Kamar Taj. But the next moment, a look of surprise appeared on Agamotto's face. What did he see? That child actually mastered 2 opposing laws at the same time. Or in an instant. This ability. Agamotto was a little surprised. In his long life, he has seen geniuses before. But like this kid is such a genius. It's really rare. It seems that if there are no accidents, Kamar Taj can have one more god backquote. That's really rare. Interesting, it's interesting, after all these years an interesting thing has finally been born. It seems that in the future, I can look forward to it. Agamotto put down the book in his hand, the expression on his face was quite excited. What happened in the deep universe? Ancient One and Li Xuan on Earth naturally don't know. Ancient One is still shocked at how abnormal Li Xuan is. To be honest. Now she felt that she didn't want to go to Strange, a disciple. Just let Li Xuan manage Kamar Taj. Definitely able to take Kamar Taj to a bright future. But, due to the appearance of the protagonist, the future timeline is very, very confused, and she can't see through it at all. Therefore, we have to observe for the time being. So she made up her mind and said, well, I think our teaching can stop here. You already have enough strength to deal with danger. Let's go out. Ancient One shook his head, and said with some regret. Originally, she thought that it would take him a little longer to teach Li Xuan. Result. This is just taught. This kid is really too talented. Learn things too quickly. Some of her preparations are completely useless. Slightly depressed, Ancient One walked out with Li Xuan. Okay, let's separate you and me. You can go directly to Asgard to find Hela. I think you should have the means to find her. As for me, I can't go with you. The power of Dormammu has been fluctuating recently. I must stay here to protect the Earth. Ancient One spoke very cautiously. Hearing this, Li Xuan also nodded. Ancient One is indeed inseparable. The 3 holy places are dead things after all. Without Ancient One guarding, it is very easy to be broken through. As a steady player who has to consider everything, Li Xuan will not make a move if he is not 100% sure of doing things. Li Xuan set his gaze on Ancient One's chest. He definitely didn't have a sudden illness and wanted to do something. He took a fancy to the Eye of Agamotto, which can be called the strongest magic weapon of Kamar Taj. That is Time Gem. Dormammu has been active recently, and Ancient One always puts it on him. Li Xuan felt that if he was allowed to bring Eye of Agamotto, no problem against Hela. Naturally, Ancient One also noticed Li Xuan's eyes. Her face darkened, and she spoke. Eye of Agamotto, don't even think about it. I must fight Dormammu with the Eye of Agamotto. Its power is very strong. However, Kamar Taj's magic weapon, you can choose the right one to bring. These magic tools can come in handy when necessary. Yes, Sorcerer Supreme. Li Xuan cupped his hands respectfully, and spoke happily. Ancient One's face darkened again. She always felt like she was being calculated. Kamar Taj has many precious instruments, and its power is also very powerful. Compared to Ancient One, Li Xuan is much happier. Kamar Taj's magic weapon is not weak either. Most importantly, be able to match their spells. Especially those powerful magic tools that have been passed down from ancient times have incredible power areas. Doctor Strange's cloak, the magic flail that once trapped Caecilius, can all come in handy in this kind of battle. Now, he has enough confidence to deal with Hela. Anxious him. Dozens of artifacts were thrown out directly. Not to mention Hela, even Odin at his peak has to avoid the edge for the time being. Farewell to Ancient One. Li Xuan came to the holy place without saying anything. Because magic weapons carry powerful power, and some have their own consciousness. Many magicians are unable to harness their power. Therefore, a large part of the ancient weapons have been sealed in the holy place, waiting for those who are destined to use them. Li Xuan came with the order of Ancient One. Qian Nuo is good, the guarding magician will naturally not stop Li Xuan. Let Li Xuan choose arbitrarily. Then he took a book and read it. He can't compare with Li Xuan, a pervert. If he wants to become stronger, he still has to study hard. Then, he was soon immersed in an endless knowledge of magic. He waited until he raised his head unsatisfied. It was already evening. He raised his head and stretched himself, he was going to have dinner. But look up. His face changed immediately. Rubbing his eyes suddenly, he realized that he had seen the right thing. All kinds of magical instruments that were originally hung on the walls of the holy place are gone. This holy place has been evacuated by Li Xuan. The magician guarding the holy place was stunned, then shocked. Li Xuan is so strong. Evacuated the holy place in front of him, and he didn't even notice. Thinking of this, holy place magician, take a deep breath. What happened in the holy place? Li Xuan, who has left the earth, is naturally unknown. After comprehending the law, Li Xuan's strength has been improved again. The strength is suddenly approaching level Godfather farewell. It can be said. Compared to the current Thanos. Except for the power of his subordinates, there is no gap in strength between him and Thanos. This kind of strength, placed in the universe, can be regarded as a hegemony. Entering the universe alone can knock down a galaxy. He enters the universe. It can be said that the sea is wide and the fish leap, and the sky is high and the birds fly. But, Li Xuan doesn't have the slightest plan to venture into the universe. Without him, this Marvel universe is too dangerous, and all kinds of dangerous things emerge endlessly. He didn't want to seek death. Then, I looked at the beautiful Earth from outer space, and enjoyed the moon for half a day. Li Xuan opened a portal and walked away. Kamar Taj's magic is so unreasonable. As long as you have enough mental power and what you think in your mind is accurate enough. In theory, your portal can go anywhere. Obviously. Li Xuan's mental strength is completely sufficient. It's just a mental move. He directly tore open a portal. Then, and he beheld Asgard, incomparably magnificent. Actually, Asgard is hardly a planet. To be more precise, Asgard is a continent floating in the universe, which is in line with the imagination of the round sky and the earth in ancient legends. He is actually an existence between the real planet and the mirror dimension. It is also the junction of the trunk of the world tree and the real world. So here you can see a very incredible scene. It flows down from the main road and flows directly into the floating ocean in the universe. Standing in the void, the incomparably majestic peaks of Asgard. Say nothing else. Asgard alone is a wonder in the universe. If it were placed on the Earth, it would be a 10A level scenic spot. But now, Li Xuan felt something was wrong. Is this Asgard? Why do you feel like you're going the wrong way? What about Asgard? Li Xuan was dumbfounded. This continent is right. This place is also correct, and the surrounding scenery can also be correct. But, where did Asgard go? What about Asgard of Asgard? What about Bifrost? You know this is the landmark building of Asgard. It is no exaggeration to say that it is the jewel of Asgard. But now, all gone. Only on the periphery, there are still some golden buildings left. In the very center of the city, there was only a huge pit left, which seemed to be left by a nuclear bomb explosion. All of them are crystal fragments, which are traces of the soil being melted. Only half of the magnificent Bifrost remains. Hiss. What happened here? Is this the trace left by the battle between Hela and Odin? This is too exaggerated. Odin deserves to be Odin. Li Xuan couldn't help but sigh a little. As expected of the Heavenly Father. The strong man who can destroy planets possesses incredible power. Even in a world as powerful as Asgard, it can cause so much damage. Under this kind of attack, even a powerhouse like Hela must have been severely injured. While he is sick, kill him. With a thought in his mind, Li Xuan stepped forward directly. Just entered the range of Asgard. Li Xuan saw that the sky suddenly darkened, and among the dark clouds, there were constantly thunders flickering in it. Odin isn't dead yet. Still fighting. Li Xuan looked at the dark clouds in the sky and speculated in his heart. No, Odin is not that weak. I don't even feel threatened. It should be the reckless Thor. This kid is crazy, isn't he a little overthinking? How dare you trouble Hela? Li Xuan couldn't help complaining in her heart. At the same time, he quickened his pace and quickly entered Asgard. If he had come late, Thor might have been beaten to death. Wait until he reaches the battlefield. Li Xuan felt that she was still late. Without him, Thor knelt on the ground with a look of embarrassment. Most of the armor on his body was shattered. Loki is supporting him by the side. In Hela's hand holds Thor's cat hammer. Hela didn't appear to have suffered any injuries. Little cutie, Odin sent you away and held your life, but you came here to die. You have no idea how powerful my power BGBH is. You don't understand what I can do. Hela's mouth twitched. With a sudden force on the hand. The indestructible Meow hammer in Thor's hands was crushed into pieces by Hela. Those metals that had been blessed by Odin fell to the ground feebly, seemingly without any power. You. Thor stood up angrily from the ground, looking at Hela angrily. Loki next to him was a little timid. Thor, we must run. Our odds are too low. Loki spoke directly. She killed our king father. She destroyed Asgard. Loki. That's our father. Thor roared with red eyes. Loki was also a little dazed for a moment. Cuties. You are actually sad for that old thing, it seems that you have been tamed by him long ago. This is really a pity. It seems that I can only kill you. Hela shook her head sadly. Raise your hand. A thick spike flew out from the ground, directly piercing Thor and Loki on the ground. However, the spike pierced through the figures of the two people. The shadow flickered for a while. A moment later, a pale Loki and a weary Thor appeared beside him. Oh, really good illusion. If you can kneel down and beg me, maybe I can give you a chance. A cat and mouse smile appeared on Hela's face. Real. Loki seemed to be moved, and asked. Naturally, my brother, Odin is not very kind to you, is he? He only cares about his own blood. Hela spoke. You're right. Loki nods. Loki. Thor growled angrily. Loki pretended he didn't hear it, and stepped forward. Yes, kneel down, I will give you a qualification to survive. If I rule this universe, I'll give you a piece of King Jong with huge amounts of it. Hela said proudly. Then, respect is worse than obedience, my queen. I, Loki of Asgard, pledge my allegiance to you. Loki walked slowly in front of Hela, knelt down on one knee, and bowed his head in salute. Hela came over and wanted to pat Loki on the shoulder. Just at this time, Loki looked up suddenly, and a dagger appeared out of nowhere, stabbing Hela directly. Pity. As if Hela had expected it long ago, he grabbed Loki's arm to prevent him from entering. What a boring game. Hela smiled dismissively and waved. Loki was sent flying straight away. Now, I've had enough fun. You can go to hell. Hela said so. Then grimaced. Several black long swords shot at Loki and Thor. If shot I'm afraid these two people will die on the spot. For a while. The situation is extremely dangerous. Ruins of Asgard. A black long sword emerged from Hela's hand. Under the blessing of his death power, this black long sword looks like a crystal, and it looks evil and awe-inspiring. Seeing that she was about to stab Thor, straight through. But at this moment, there was a flash of gold. A golden spot of light suddenly appeared. The black long sword in Hela's hand was blown away for a moment. Get out. Who is it? Hela backed away abruptly, looking around vigilantly, unable to hide the anger on her face at all. The rat who hides his head and shows his tail, come out for me. Hela roared angrily. Two black long swords appeared in his hands, like a goddess of war, mighty and extraordinary. Hide your head and show your tail. No, no, it's because you can't find me, but you can't say that I hide my head and show my tail. Li Xuan took a step. A crack was torn open in the mirror dimension in front of him, and he walked out of it. It's you. Hela was taken aback, and subconsciously shouted. But she reacted quickly. A wild smile appeared on his face. Very good. Quote. Originally, I wanted to go to the earth to find you, so that you could feel the destruction of your world. It's fine now, you actually sent it to your door to seek death. Then I will fulfill you. Hela yelled angrily, the divine power of death in her body surged crazily like the sea. Want to kill me? I don't know if you still have this ability. After the battle with Odin, how much strength do you still have? Li Xuan squinted his eyes, as if to see Hela's reality clearly. Hela didn't mean to give up in the slightest. Ignorant people of Midgard, this is in Asgard. This is the country that nourishes me. Want to defeat me in Asgard? You are delusional. Hela said something coldly. The power of death on the body suddenly exploded. Without warning, a dozen or so black spikes suddenly appeared on the ground under Li Xuan's feet. It was as if he wanted to smash what Li Xuan gave into a sieve. On the crystal-like spikes, there is a black-purple light shining, and the strong power of death emanates from it, which makes people very frightened. Such a dangerous blow made Thor and Loki, who were lying on the ground next to them, full of horror. But the real protagonist, Li Xuan, is not in a hurry. He just stomped his feet lightly. A mysterious power emanated from him. Click. Those black crystal spikes piercing from the ground actually shattered in an instant. Seeing this scene, Hela shrank her pupils. Law. It turned out to be law. It is also the law of force known for its violence. How can this be? The last time I fought against this Midgard human. This kid shows no sign of comprehending the law at all. It is even far from understanding the law. But now, this kid actually comprehended the law. How could it be so fast? Hela was surprised and became cautious. Opponents who comprehend the law and opponents who did not comprehend the law are not at the same level at all. There is no opponent who comprehends the law. As long as she touches it, she may be able to take the life of the enemy. But after comprehending the law, everything is different. Law has lost the effect it should have. How did this guy understand the law in such a short period of time? Hela was a little annoyed in her heart, but her face quickly regained her composure. Man of Midgard, no wonder you dare to come to Asgard. It turns out that the strength has improved, and I feel that I have a certain level of confidence. But now, I will let you recognize yourself. Saying that, Hela waved her hand. The two long swords in his hands were shrouded in inexplicable power and became very shiny. Careful. This is the night sky sword that Odin bestowed on Hela. It's very powerful. As long as you are scratched, your vitality will be stripped. Thor reminded loudly beside him. Li Xuan glanced at Thor lightly. He strode to the side as if he was strolling in the courtyard, dodging an attack from Hela. Only then did he speak. Thanks for the reminder, I understand. He nodded at Thor. Li Xuan's mental strength moved. A double-sided magic shield appeared in his hand. But, compared to before, his magic shield is much more dazzling at this moment. Holding it in Li Xuan's hands, it looks like two little suns. Even Hela had to cover her eyes with her hands. After a while, Li Xuan only controlled the magic shield and it dimmed. The originally pure golden magic shield exuding the mystery of magic has now turned into Baijan color. An incomparably peaceful atmosphere emanated from it. Li Xuan nodded in satisfaction. He rushed towards Hela. The shield in my hand is just a top, a pick. The black test shot by Hela was directly ejected by him and shot on the ground beside him. Sometimes, Li Xuan just slashed down with the shield in his hand, and the black crystal spikes that flew out shattered directly. Hela's pupils shrank again. Her strength has become stronger, and this kid's strength has also become stronger. To know. Now she has recovered the strength of the heyday, the same tricks, the power is no longer the same. Now Li Xuan can still cut her attack. What's going on with this kid? Why is strength growing so fast? She knew that her strength would increase after comprehending the law, but how could she be so exaggerated? Hela's heart was very heavy. Li Xuan's abnormality. It was a bit beyond her imagination. But, as an Asgard, even if she knows that the target in front of her is invincible, she will go forward with a knife. Not to mention, she didn't think that Li Xuan's strength could surpass her in such a short time. This unscientific. See Li Xuan approaching. Hela didn't bother to project the black crystal spikes formed by the force of death. Instead, holding a powerful magic weapon Night Sky Sword, he rushed up directly. The people of Asgard have unrivaled strength. Plus magical weapons forged by Odin. No one can resist her attack. Hela put her hands together. The two Night Sky Swords merged into one. He slashed straight at Li Xuan. Li Xuan had no intention of retreating at all. Step. All of a sudden, every muscle in the whole body was mobilized by Li Xuan. Powerful power was transmitted from the legs, to the waist, and then to his arms. For a while, the ground centered on him collapsed directly. Ding! The Night Sky Sword and Li Xuan's magic shield collided directly. There was a sharp and piercing noise. Both Thor and Loki even felt a pain in their ears, and they were dizzy, with temporary tinnitus. The remains of the surrounding buildings were also directly shattered. Boom boom boom. Hela flew backwards and took dozens of steps back. Every step leaves a footprint on the ground. Looks like a lot of work has been done. A collision. Hela is to test Li Xuan's current depth. This kid is unfathomable. A magician competed with their Asgardians for strength and gained the upper hand. Is this something a human can do? Hela was shocked. Totally do not understand. For a magician, it is enough to comprehend the law of force, but he can use the law of force so well. Last time, she felt that this kid was not simple. It looks even scarier now. This ability is too perverted, right? Hela pursed her lips, feeling very annoyed. As the god of death in Asgard, she is rarely deflated. But with Li Xuan, she has been deflated several times. But, she will never admit defeat. In Asgard, no one can defeat her. Hela's heart was constantly filled with anger. 553. The green power flows from her body to her body, as if a green network is formed under her skin. People of Midgard, you are definitely the most capable magician I have ever seen. Even in the deep dimension back then, several natural mysterious races are not as good as you. But that's it. Let you see me in my prime. Hela roared loudly. Powerful power flows through her body. Boom. Hela pats down. The green death power directly spread out around her. But, this power did not cause any harm to people. Even Thor and Loki are safe. Just when Thor and Loki were very stunned. Li Xuan was moved. Hela's move made him think of something. The reason why Hela was so powerful back then was that she had a status comparable to Ao Gong. Not just because she was originally very powerful. Still because Hela's subordinates have an almost endless death army. It has been in the universe for an unknown number of years. Now, it seems that Hela is playing for the attention of those troops. Hiss. Ah. As expected. After a while, there was a howling sound of huge amounts of in the distance, and then the sound became one piece, one after another. Come, my loyal soldiers. Tear the enemy in front of me to pieces. Let him fall into the kingdom of death forever. Hela shouted in a very high voice. The ground began to vibrate, as if something huge amounts of something was approaching. What's that sound? Why do I hear a wolf howling? Loki panicked a little at the sound. Nature is Fenrir, Hela's mount, a monster. Don't you all know this? Li Xuan said lightly. Should we know? Loki spoke in panic. Li Xuan shook his head. With a wave, a golden earth cover enveloped the two of them. For Odin's sake, you two should stay safe. Say something. Li Xuan turned to look at Hela. I really didn't expect that the goddess of death would have such a day to bully the few with the more. The majestic goddess of death, doesn't she even have the courage to fight head-on? Hela just gave Li Xuan a cold look, and didn't respond to his ridicule. Instead, green energy flickered and enveloped her. Looks like he's repairing his injuries. Obviously. Odin's attack, Hela endured and paid huge amounts of price. If this isn't Asgard, Hela might already be dead. Facing a formidable opponent like Li Xuan, Hela was very cautious. Instead, he summoned his own army to buy himself time. Even Li Xuan, the opponent, couldn't help but sigh Hela's calmness. Sure enough, he is the god of death. At that time, Odin fought against the existence of this universe. Combat consciousness can be said to be a first-class existence. But that's all for herself. Wanting to rely on these troops to deal with him really underestimated Li Xuan. Hela, your biggest problem is that you are too conceited. Now let you see how vulnerable the Death Army you are proud of is. Li Xuan said something. The whole person seems to be like a balloon, flying high. Far away. Undefeated army of undead in black armor charged from a distance. Leading. It was a giant wolf as tall as 2 buildings. Li Xuan was floating in midair, unmoved at all. He whispered softly without haste. Divine sword of Emperor Weishan. Pulling one hand to the side. A Baijin-colored holy sword was drawn out by Li Xuan. This time, Li Xuan didn't rush forward to fight. Instead, he held up the sacred sword in his hand. Next moment, milky white light emanated from the holy sword. The light directly illuminated the range of thousands of meters around, as if a sun had risen again in the sky. But this milky glow is not dazzling, kind of soft. Thor and Loki, who were lying on the ground, just felt a gust of wind blowing on their faces. The injuries in the body are all better. Come in comparison. Hela knows a lot. What? Bright law. You understand 2 kinds of law. How can this be? Hela screamed directly, and the expression on her face was a little distorted. He screamed so much. The Death Army rushing up over there screamed. Under this milky light, the army of the dead has no power to resist. Their bodies melted slowly, as if they had fallen directly into the magma. Their bodies seemed to be shattered. It directly turned into coke, slowly breaking apart piece by piece. After a while, not even the scum was left. Fenrir, the giant wolf who took the lead, had a very miserable end. Milky white light shone on its body. Its fur began to dim, its skin began to rot, and its flesh and blood began to slowly rot. Pieces of fragments slowly fell from the body. 3.9 is as Chanyal as if he suffered from Ling Kai. Such a powerful monster that can wrestle with Hulk, with sharp teeth that can bite through Hulk's skin. Before reaching Li Xuan, he was beheaded like this. Hela. What else do you rely on? Li Xuan said lightly. Hela's face was very ugly. Thor and Loki were stupefied, as if they had lost the ability to think. Hela's power is already strong enough. But the magician on this earth seems to be even more perverted. In their eyes, such a powerful death army was destroyed so easily with one move. This is too scary, right? Thor even thought so. The strength of this magician may have approached his father Odin. How old is this kid? What a monster. Thanks for watching, please subscribe and support our channel.